justice for. Wow, well, I would like to thank everybody for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. Especially love to see the public come in. Not always the case, so we really appreciate all of you guys coming here tonight. I'd like to start off with roll call, please. So we'll start with those in the room and then we'll go to online.
Chris Lisenik, present.
Holly Roberts, present.
Tammy Crossan, present.
Gudrid Espenscheid, present.
So moving on, we're going to move on to the minutes from April 16th meeting. Has everyone had the opportunity to look through the minutes?
Yes.
Are there any changes or edits that we need to make?
Not for me.
Okay.
Not for me.
Super. Can I get a past minutes? Oh, Gudrid, did you?
I was just going to concur. Looks
Okay.
good.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I-
It's Tammy.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the April 16th meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Minutes are approved. Thanks. I have a pen holder. Oh, yes, yes, you can. All right, so moving on, again, I would like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Just to kind of give you guys an idea of anybody that hasn't been here, how this will proceed. Our staff will give a staff report, a general rundown of the application at hand. Then we will give the applicant an opportunity to have any comments that they have. It'll go back to the board to ask any questions, and then it will be opened up for public comment so everyone will have an opportunity to speak if they would like to. And that will all be done before a final vote on our part. So just so everyone has an idea. Tonight we will be starting with the Union cell phone tower or communication tower, and then we'll follow up with the rezone and conditional use permit for the ROMAC LLC. So if we can start out with the Union cell phone tower application. Tower, sorry.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen first. And I think just to give a brief introduction of this is our first wireless facility following the new county tower regulations. So new tower regulations were adopted in the beginning of March. It took about 6 months to develop these regulations. Right before these regulations were adopted, or before we started drafting them even, Union Wireless had a conditional use permit for a public facility and a variance for a 150-foot tall lattice tower in Big Piney. And they withdrew the application after it went to planning and zoning. I do not even recall what the planning and zoning recommendation was at that meeting, but they withdrew the application and have resubmitted it under the new regulations. So this is being reviewed under the new regulations. It's generally in the same location as the tower that was proposed before. However, the difference is, and I'll let Union speak to this, the primary difference is that this is a 120-foot monopole instead of a lattice tower. And that was an attempt to really come to us with the new regulations in place. This is the first time going through this. So this is a conditional use permit and a wireless facility adjustment. So typically if someone is exceeding the height, or if they want to exceed a setback or something related to their property, you're required to get a variance. However, a wireless facility adjustment, this is designed specifically as a mechanism for towers to exceed the height limit of 60 or whatever that height is in that zoning district. So that's why this is called a wireless facility adjustment, this has different requirements than a standard variance application. And there's been a lot of information that's been shared for this application. I know it's a lot to go through. And I think this is just us trying to also learn the process of this new application. And so that's why I think just, us trying to work through this and really go through the regulations tonight, this may take a little more time just because, we really do want to do a good check with the regulations and implementing them. So just for an overview, this is the subject property. This is zoned A1. And we'll turn on the surrounding zoning. If I can find it. Okay, so this is surrounding county zoning, but then this is adjacent to Big Piney. So I think it's just important to also point out the Big Piney zoning. The south boundary is adjacent to the town of Big Piney. And here is a Google Earth view. The application does include some photos of the site. Oops, let me see if I can. My points. I had some points on here, but they all disappeared. So the proposed Union Tower is approximately in this location up here. And I will just do I don't know what happened to all my points. We'll just do a bird's eye or a street view. Am I in the right spot here? Let's go a little further. And when we review these applications, I think generally the discussion may include the conditional use and the wireless facility adjustment together. However, they will have to be discussed independently towards the end of the discussion. They will be approved if they are approved. Whatever the recommendation is, they will have to be two separate recommendations. So, but this is the general location here. And do you have any other questions, Holly, or do you want to turn it over to Union?
I think we can turn it over to Union.
Okay.
At this point.
Chris or Cody, does someone want to present from here?
Yeah, I'll take it and present here in a second. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining and thanks for your time this evening. I will get my presentation up here and then we'll get started.
Wait, or which one are you looking at?
It doesn't matter to me, whatever one's easiest to move.
Can I move this one?
Thank you.
All that.
Yeah, I'm not moving.
One second. All right. All right. Well, my name is Chris Schlax. I am with SAC Wireless, and we're here on behalf of Union Wireless. Courtney Standridge is on my team. She's online as well. We've got Cody Quintal, Donovan Whitehead, and Tommy Toman on from Union as well. And I believe Tyler Toll should be in the audience representing Union here tonight. So I'll take you through the presentation here, and then we'll all be available for any questions. All right. So a little bit about Union. Union's been around for over 100 years, servicing Wyoming and some of the surrounding states. They began in the early 90s providing wireless services to kind of that same footprint. And essentially the services, whether they're wireline or wireless, that Union provides are essential for everyday communications, keeps communities connected, allows businesses to operate and grow, and primarily keeps people safe. And that's with the coverage provides kind of critical 911 service. So that'll be something we talk about here is, even if there's not a lot of people in certain areas, we do want to provide an overall network that'll provide for 911 services along those roads and in those areas. So that's a little bit about Union. Specific to this project is part of the FCC mandated rip and replace program to remove Chinese-made equipment, specifically Huawei and ZTE, that is currently deployed in the network. And this was due to national security concerns. So the equipment that's deployed out there today is up on the water tower just to the south of Piney Drive or Highway 350 there. And that existing structure, the water tower, cannot structurally support the new or replacement equipment that needs to go up. And so thus we are looking for a new location for this equipment to go. We did look at that exact same parcel with the water towers, and that was determined to not be feasible due to interference concerns with the water tower. If you've got a tower right next to the water tower, it would shoot, right into that structure and would not be a viable network option for us. So with that, our proposal at the Mickelson Lane site is to install a 120-foot monopole. The antenna tips would be 124 feet. This would include one electrical building, one generator shelter, and a chain link fence surrounding a 100 by 100 lease area. This proposed tower and facility is built to suit Union and one other co-location option, which is per the updated regulation requirements. Previously, I think it was 3 additional co-locations. Now it's only 1, and that's what this tower would allow for. We're also asking to be able to remove the existing equipment on the water tower location up to 1 year after the new tower is built and functional. The key there is that we want the new network, the new tower up and working before we rip out any of the existing equipment, so there's no break in service. And then the overall goal from an RF engineering perspective is to replicate or expand existing coverage. And this really goes down to existing customers that rely on the service, have it today, and 911 coverage for the area. We don't want to affect that. We don't want to reduce it in any areas with this project. We want to either keep it or expand it. And that's why this location was chosen. The proposed layout up at the top center there is just going to be your compound look with the access road. It does have the setbacks from the property line there. We're more than, essentially almost double the tower height there, 220 feet from the nearest parcel line to the south. Down in the bottom center is just an outline of the compound itself, 100 by 100 with the tower and then the equipment shelters. And then over to the right is going to be your view of the monopole itself, 120-foot tower. The equipment at the top extends up to 124 feet, and then it's visually showing the 2 potential equipment sets up there, Union and 1 co-locator. And the key differences here from our previous submittal that we had last year is that we were able to reduce the height from 150 feet down to 120 in our proposal. 2 reasons here. 1, we only have to have 1 co-locator on it, so that gives us a little bit more flexibility downwards. And 2, this was determined based on the RF engineering that this was the minimum height that we would need for this location to make it suitable. And then second, we proposed a slimmer monopole as opposed to the lattice tower. Also open to painting that monopole. It could be brown, gray, green, whatever helps kind of blend it in, again, to make it a little bit more visually appealing to the area. So I think with both of these changes, it's in response to the feedback we got in the previous submission. All right. So now we'll go into some of the justifications for this location. The first is going to be the height proposed. So I had mentioned that 120 feet is what's needed here. From our RF engineer, the 120 feet replicates the current coverage. So the water tank is 150 feet tall. The equipment's at 135 feet. Little bit of compromise with the coverage, but 120 feet is going to give us the suitable coverage kind of in all directions that we need here. This proposed tower allows or follows the new regulations requiring 1 co-locator on the tower. Most co-location requests require about 20 feet of vertical separation. So you'd have the equipment at the top at 120 feet, and then the next co-locator down towards about 100 feet on the tower. And both of those heights give adequate coverage for what's needed. Anything lower than that, it's going to start to be a challenge for somebody to be a viable co-locator there. So this gives us that option and meets the new regulation. To that point, the 60-foot height, we're considering a hardship for this area, and that's why we're seeking relief with that variance or with that adjustment, and that we've got to be above the 60-foot limit there in order to meet our coverage goals. And the 3 primary coverage goals for this tower are, number 1, providing a dedicated service into the town of Big Piney, which on these 3 views here are going to be your black circle there in the middle. Number 2 is going to be extending rural coverage to the southwestern valley, which is going to be out to the west and down to the south, which are going to be your red circles shown there. And then number 3, it's going to be provide capacity offload to the western portion of the town of Marbleton while expanding rural coverage northwest of Mickelson Lane and North Piney Cottonwood Road Junction. And that's going to be your blue circle there towards the top. And I'll get into more detail about how to read these 3 charts, but essentially the green is going to be your strong coverage, light green a little bit weaker, yellow borderline coverage, and then white is kind of no coverage provided from this tower. I did want to call out though, up in Marbleton, so up in your kind of northeast portion of this map, it gets a little bit weaker from this tower. There is another tower to the east of Marbleton, and these 2 towers would work together to cover that area and allow for handoff between the sectors to balance the load there. So we do, it is important for us to be able to cover portions of Marbleton with this tower. The 3 charts here at the bottom show on the left the 120 foot, which is what our proposal is. The 100 foot, which would be where the co-locator would be at, still providing suitable coverage in our 3 primary coverage goal areas. And then the chart on the right is going to be your 60 foot tower. And I think what you see here is reduced coverage out to the west and south, weaker coverage in the town of Big Piney, which is kind of our primary area to cover, and then borderline to 0 coverage or 0 assistance up in Marbleton. So I think when you combine these 3 areas, going down to 60 feet is just not going to be suitable for this tower location. All right, and to help with kind of explaining those colors that you see in these maps, because I think it's important because this is going to justify the coverage needs here. We put in this slide here to talk through the propagation maps. So RSRP and signal level maps in LTE network, signal level is represented by RSRP, or reference signal receive power, which is the measurement of the received signal strength of that channel used by a phone to determine which the best cell is to attach to. So essentially how strong your connection is. And the 3 levels shown, dark green corresponds to a strong signal that works great for both voice and data. Light green is a little bit weaker signal where you start to see your data slow slightly, but voice is still functional. Yellow is where the signal weakens further and data starts to degrade further, and voice quality issues may start to occur. You might start to be breaking up with your phone calls there. And then finally, lower than that, where it's white, is no coverage provided from this tower, and you'd expect calls to start dropping at that point. The other key here is that when you move from outdoor to indoor coverage, you typically see a signal strength loss of 5 to 10 decibel milliwatts, which is your on the chart up there. So it corresponds to a drop in color level. So if you're in a light green inside, that might drop it down to a yellow. So we want to make sure that the very populated areas in the towns of Big Piney and Marbleton are as strong of a coverage as we can with this tower. Looking up at the top at those 2 charts, again, you see the 120 feet is going to provide that green, dark green to light green in kind of all those key areas. Whereas at 60 feet, it starts to go to yellow or white, and you're going to start to have service issues if you're propagating from a 60-foot tower. Moving on to photo simulations. So we did provide these. The view on the left here is looking back into Big Piney along the highway there. Water tanks are on the right side of the photo, and then the tower is on the left. Again, that slimmer monopole, less, I guess, visually obstructive there on the left. And then on the right side here, this is looking from Big Piney out, and you've got the water tanks on the left, and then the tower is actually just kind of behind that tree there, behind the homes or apartments there. This is an example monopole from another location in Wyoming, and could be representative of what this would look like here. So this is going to be a monopole. So again, a similar look than a 4-legged or 3-legged lattice tower. And this one is painted brown, and it's got kind of a rusted look. So depending on the needs or the blending of the terrain behind it, whether it's green, if it's more trees, if it's brown or gray, those are options that try to help it blend in and not be as much of a concern. Right. Next couple slides are going to go through the alternatives. This was a big discussion point in our previous submission, was what other locations did you consider, or where else could you have considered for this tower? So our alternative analysis looks at a 5-mile radius. This first view is going to look at some of the towers further to the north. So there's a 45-foot Friendly Creek tower that's existing far to the north. This was determined not to be feasible as it's located very far north of both Big Piney and Marbleton, and with only a height of 45 feet, it doesn't meet the coverage objectives to the south or back into the towns of Marbleton and Big Piney. So that one was determined to not be a viable option. There are 2 towers within Marbleton itself. One is on the north side of Marbleton and another on the water tank. Both of these, again, because they're further north, does not help as much with the coverage to the west or the south. And Union has an existing tower that's shown here kind of on the east side of Marbleton with the yellow arrow. Any of the towers within Marbleton would provide kind of unnecessary redundant coverage to this existing tower today. So we really need to look for something further west and further south. With that, we'll go into the next slide, and that'll kind of dive into the 3 locations down here along the highway out of Big Piney. So this is a zoomed in view. The desired location is at the top center of this. And then the areas that we considered, first out to the northwest is the Millig Hay Yard and Winter Feed area. This was not as favorable as it does not meet the second coverage objective for the site, which is coverage back into Big Piney, because you're moving further west and it's important to get that coverage back into Big Piney. It also, from a RF perspective, was a concern because it loads up onto a single sector into Big Piney. So that's going to become, again, challenges with offloading the traffic there between the different sectors. We prefer to kind of have a balanced approach into the populated areas. Also on this, the location was impacting the landowner's operations, and so we did not get to a point where we could reach a lease agreement there. And then because it is further to the west, we would need additional height beyond the 120 in order to make this potentially feasible, or at least get into the feasible range. And so you'd be actually asking for a taller tower at this point. So that coupling kind of all those together determined that this would not be a viable option. We also looked at the Millig candidate south of Piney Drive. This was determined not to be feasible due to setback limitations, a little bit smaller area to work with, and also we didn't have an agreement there on a suitable location with the landowner. There's a Graylock location, which is just south of the water tank location. Working with the operations team there, determined that that leased area would affect their operations and would not be a suitable location. We looked back into Big Piney at the CenturyLink tower. So this is an existing tower. There's a couple concerns with this. One is that there's a potential foundation or structural concern with the tower. There's not much equipment on it today, and the foundation is somewhat degrading a bit. It's kind of wearing away. So that was an initial red flag. And then from an RF perspective, it's further east, closer to that neighboring site in Marbleton, which, you know, those 2 towers are meant to work together, and does not provide the coverage out to the west or to the south. This tower is at an elevation 30 feet lower, so although it's a little bit taller, it doesn't even provide the same coverage that we have today. So looking at those key coverage areas to the south and west, as well as up into Marbleton, this tower doesn't provide the necessary coverage that we're looking for. And then finally, the Guio property down to the south. This one as well, similar feedback to what we saw with the CenturyLink tower in Big Piney, too far east to replicate the current coverage, and then closer into Marbleton, again, providing kind of unnecessary redundancy there. We also did not get to a workable agreement with the landowner there as well. So taking all that together and kind of our analysis of the options, looking at kind of the 3 main considerations. One is, could we have gone further west? Or two, could we have gone into the CenturyLink tower in Big Piney? We did provide those same signal charts here to show kind of the concerns with those other two towers. So on the left is going to be our 120-foot tower that we're proposing and the coverage that that would provide. In the middle is the Millig Hayard 140-foot tower. And then to the right is the CenturyLink tower, which is also 140 feet. The Millig Hayard is not as favorable as it doesn't meet the secondary coverage objective, which is allowing the two towers to kind of balance loading in Big Piney and Marbleton. So that's going to be your blue circle here. The coverage is weaker as you head into both of those populated areas, and thus we would, prefer to have stronger coverage where the main population is. The CenturyLink tower, which is in Big Piney itself, is further east, and so you've got weaker coverage out to the west and to the south. Those are highlighted by the red circles on the charts here. So when looking at that, those are kind of two key coverage areas that these towers cannot handle, like the 120-foot proposal at Mickelson Lane. So that covers kind of our analysis of what we looked at, where we looked at, north, south, east, west, existing towers, proposed towers. I think at this point I'll do a quick recap and then we'll open it up for questions. So the overall goal from an engineering perspective is to replicate or expand existing cellular coverage. We don't want to hurt existing coverage today, hurt existing customers, or reduce our current 911 footprint. The existing and proposed towers further east, west, or north of the proposed location in Mickelson Lane were determined to not be feasible alternatives given cellular coverage considerations. So that's why we're proposing at the Mickelson Lane location. We are seeking the variance or the wireless adjustment because of the 60-foot height limit, the proposed location, as it's a hardship to provide the necessary replacement coverage that we need today. The 120 foot is a minimum height to provide the necessary coverage for Union and one future co-locator, and that's per the new regulation requirement. And then our submittal includes the reduced height and slimmer painted monopole based on previous feedback. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the board and we'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chris. We really appreciate that. Does anyone on the board have questions for Chris to start?
Yes, I do. This is Gudrid Espenscheid.
Hello. Hey, Gudrid.
Hi,
Yep, we got
how are
you.
you doing?
Good about
Okay.
yourself.
Thank you. Thanks. First of all, I appreciate your application. It was very thorough and answered, or at least touched on quite a few questions already. Just to expound on some of those questions, I do have to ask more about the water tower. You said that it cannot structurally support the new equipment, and I want you to explain why. You've gone into the convex, the spreading of interference and stuff like that, but it seems like with some engineering and, fabrication, alteration, adjustments, it would be okay to properly mount your new equipment. Essentially, you're trying to replicate that exact area and coverage. So I want you to try and justify more why that isn't, that isn't a viable place, even considering some future creativity on engineering or mounting standards.
Yeah, so I think when we look at the existing location, we do run a structural analysis against the tower that we have. So that is something we could provide, but it did fail quite significantly on the water tower itself. And part of it is it's probably been around a while. It wasn't necessarily meant to support cellular equipment, although it potentially could. And you're installing it potentially up on railings or things that in general might not be meant for the new equipment. And with the new antennas, it's quite a bit more antenna equipment that's being deployed in order to provide LTE service to the area. And so it was, thought to be a pretty significant undertaking to modify not only something that, corresponds to the water supply in the town, but I guess an opportunity for us to look for a tower that would be more suitable for cellular equipment going forward. I don't know, Tyler, if you're in the audience, or Donovan, if you have anything more on that location, or Cody, but once we had the failing structural on the water tower, that becomes a challenge to kind of work through.
Yeah, and I would, my name's.
Sorry.
Can you take,
I'm so sorry. Yeah, you can talk in the mic. That way everybody can hear you. Thank you.
Again, my name's Tyler. I'm with Union Telephone, and I think Chris explained that pretty well. I mean, there's a point where we have to keep safety concerns in mind. There is an alternate and primary use for a water tank, which is, like Chris mentioned, getting water to the folks of Big Piney. And when you talk about in-depth modifications that are recommended from a structural analysis, there just becomes a point where we feel more comfortable getting off that tower with the added loading of the new equipment to, keep the primary use of the water tank intact, as well as have less risk, if you will, with a new structure that's solely for wireless communication.
before you go?
Sure.
So, I mean, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. I think what you're saying, although I want to get more explicit about it, is that you're saying that your estimation is that if you were to put this equipment on the water tower, that it would cause the water tower to fail?
That's absolutely correct.
And in what ways? I don't, just help me understand as a non-engineer, like you think.
Well, and
what would
I
be-
am not an engineer either, but
Okay.
here, let me I will give it as best I can in layman's terms, and then I will let Donovan or Tommy, who are actual engineers on our call, kind of add to my explanation. So anytime that we do an equipment add to an existing structure, we'll have an engineering firm run a structural analysis, and they're taking into account how whatever that structure is, how it's made, everything behind it. And they're telling us if we add the equipment that we need to add, if it will fail, or if it's at risk of failure, or if it will accommodate what we're after. Now, with this rip and replace, like we're calling it, add of equipment or replacement of equipment, we're deploying LTE services, and that is significantly heavier than what we're operating today on the water tank. So when you add that weight, our engineering firm that's running those analyses are telling us that this is not a viable option and would take either significant modification or couldn't even handle the modification in order to still have that primary use and everything be safe and in harmony. And I hope I explained that well. Tommy or Donovan, please chime in if I missed anything.
Nope, I think you covered that really well. When we do the structural analysis, they take a lot of things into account when loading, risk category for the structure itself, for cellular equipment, water tank, whatever the structure's purpose is, and they put that into the summary of the actual loading percentage given the margins that with the risk category are acceptable.
Am I right that we don't, I think you said we do not have that structural analysis report, right? I don't see it in our package. Just confirming. Is that a factual statement?
I would assume that structural that we submitted, and Haley, you can correct me if I'm wrong, would be for the new structure that we're proposing.
Yeah, I think that's probably all we would have had. It was with the new structural to show that new tower would support the equipment. I think the old one was probably just used as part of initial determination of a new site need here.
This is Gudrid Espenscheid again. So you claim it's significantly heavier. Like what? Like how much heavier? And when you say it would take significant structural implementation. I mean, what exactly are you saying there?
I think there's two parts to that. You know, it's some newer antennas, a little bit bigger antennas, number of antennas, the ability to expand in the future, you know, is something to consider with that. But specifically for the failing, I mean, you'd be looking at potentially having to reinforce all 4 legs. We also look at not only the tower itself, but the foundation. That might be something else we'd have to either beef up or expand on. So it could become quite a extensive project on kind of all fronts there if, you know, if that was what we were pursuing.
Okay, this is Goodard Espenscheid again, because I actually had talked to somebody in the past couple weeks about the differences between a 3G wireless equipment and a 4G LTE. And they mentioned that the panels would be bigger, would require a little bit more mounting, but I didn't get the idea. I mean, I specifically asked. I didn't get the idea it was that huge of a difference. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You know, when I asked them, they told me about the panels, a little bit higher antennas, but I got the idea anything could be retrofitted to that. I didn't get the idea it was a huge weight difference.
So when we're talking about the antennas themselves, from the existing antennas that were deployed with 3G versus the antennas that we would be deploying with LTE network, with a lot of the performance increases that are desired to come with an LTE network, these antennas are about 50 to 100 pounds heavier on average per antenna, and we're increasing the number of antennas.
And
Okay.
this is Tommy Tillman.
Okay.
If you would allow me, please, I could maybe expand a little bit further on the structural analysis of the existing water tank. So we're looking at a fundamental difference in how structures are analyzed. When we run a structural analysis, we have to meet the standards set by TIA and ANSI, which is 222, current Rev H and I. Water tanks or facilities not for specific communication needs do not run to those standards. So that would meet more of like an IBC code for a water tank. The big difference in running structural analysis under the communication facilities for TIA 222 is the risk factor, being that it does provide emergency services. Those are quite a bit different, and that would account for the significant failure of the water tank. When we look at the failure, I think we're setting about 130.7% loading on our most recent structural analysis for the tank itself, and that would be the supporting structure. And then the foundation was pretty close. I think it was sitting at 129%. That doesn't mean that the structure is going to fail for its intended purpose, but it would not meet the requirements for communication facilities and the risk factors associated with that.
Okay, and this is Goodard again. As Mr. Chris Lasenick had asked before, which was a good question. Well, actually, I forgot that. Okay, I have another question based on the CenturyLink tower when we're ready to go, you know, the proposed CenturyLink tower when we're ready to go into that.
You're more than welcome to go ahead, Goodard.
Okay, so in terms of these other sites, I really want to be able to flesh some of these out. The CenturyLink tower, you had mentioned, you know, the perceived foundation and structural concerns. You know, I know that is an old tower. However, that particular, and I know you say there's some redundancy to the north and possibly the east, I think you had said. That tower is a tower that has a footprint in town at a height of, I think, 140 or somewhere between 120 and 140. I'm not sure exactly. But that's been accepted by the townspeople. And I know that it's is there no option to, disassemble that tower, put in one of your own towers, for that particular site, to service, even if you're at 140 or even a little bit higher? Seems like that should be a viable option for establishing a new tower.
So I think the challenge there is that's obviously another company, their tower. It is lower, 30 feet lower there. So even with a slightly taller tower, again, to maintain that coverage out towards the west, you're going to have to go probably significantly above that to get that same level of coverage. And again, it would be not just extending that tower, but dealing with some of the concerns with the structurals there. Actually, if I can share again, I'll show some photos. Do have a couple photos here of the tower itself. So the foundation looks to be degrading here in a couple of the views, including some of the connection points. And then also looking at it, it doesn't have a lot of equipment on it. So just coupling those together with the concerns here, it didn't seem like this was going to be an option for us, because we'd have to go taller and potentially either fix or replace this entire facility, which is another company at this point. So again, looking for an option that would give us the flexibility and kind of what we need for the network.
Gudrid Espenscheid again. I understand that. Have you talked with the company to see if they'd be willing to, work with you to reply? I mean, I understand that's going to take, money to replace the tower or to refurbish or upgrade a tower. Have you talked with CenturyLink about possible proposals for you to work together, and realizing that the cost of that, and the cost of putting a new tower in, might be fairly comparable?
We have reached out. I don't know, Cody, if you want to chime in. I think they have a management company that kind of manages this tower for them. But anything you want to add there, Cody, on the discussions with them?
Yeah. So I'm Cody Clinton, I was Union Wireless. So this is actually managed by a company called Vertical Bridge now. It is a CenturyLink tower. I have reached out to them just to see if there would be an option to co-locate. It does sound like it would be an option. However, with the minimal equipment that is on there, I think there is some concerns that structurally it wouldn't be able to house our equipment as well. Our latest correspondence is, as you can see on the top of that tower, there's kind of a reflector plate, that square at the top, and then it shoots down. We don't have a picture, I don't believe, to a microwave dish. So this leads us to believe that basically this tower already cannot hold that microwave dish, or they would just put that microwave dish and replace that mirror there. So kind of just leads us to believe that that tower isn't structurally capable of housing any other equipment. But we did reach out to see if we were to co-locate, if we could move that reflector plate, and that would be an option, but we have not heard back yet.
Okay, this is Gudrid Espenscheid again. So just to get this clear, are you kind of unwilling to work on the necessary funds to upgrade that tower? Is that just, I understand you keep saying it's structurally I'm just wondering, is that just not really where you want to put your money into, perhaps upgrading that tower?
Gudrid, this is Tyler with Union, and kind of a little bit of all of those questions, comments that you just made. At some point, it becomes a business decision, and Union feels like there's a couple things with this structure, and Chris already alluded to them. One is overloading of sectors compared with how our network is in operation today. The closer that we get to that CenturyLink tower, which that also means we are getting closer to an existing Union tower that's in the Marbleton area. So at that point, you're overloading sectors, which means you're degrading your service by adding people to one side of your tower compared to the other, if you will. The other is, at some point there's going to be a cost not only to the replacement of the equipment, but as well as, a rental. And all those things are business decisions. And at some point, Union made the choice to, propose this new structure because we feel that's best, not only for the operation of our network and our customers, but, from a business standpoint as well.
Okay, thank you.
So one question that I have for you guys is, so with the existing structure being on the south side of the highway or existing service, moving it to the north, what does that entail? And mind my ignorance on how this works. Is there any underground connectivity? Like, what would be the process of if it was voted in or okayed? What would be the process of moving service to north of the highway? Is there going to be significant construction in regards to ground disturbance, I guess is what I'm getting at?
Only at, the newly proposed communication site. So there's two things that need to come to that new tower. One is a power line and one is fiber optic line. And you can think of these initially as two separate happenings, right? The new tower would be built, the power line and the fiber line would be constructed to the site. And then once the new tower were online, then all the equipment on the water tank would be decommissioned and destroyed. So kind of two different things, but yes, there will be a power line installed to the proposed new tower, as well as there would be a fiber line.
Thank you. One question that had been asked by an individual that couldn't come in today was they were questioning the hill above by the Plainview Cemetery, if that was considered as a location, whereas it does sit up on a hill, probably possibly have a wider coverage. Was that considered at all?
I would have to know where the cemetery is in relation to where we're proposing. I'm assuming it's further west, or am I incorrect there? South and west. I feel like this is going to be another coverage answer. The farther that we get from that proposed location, and Donovan, feel free to chime in. The further that we get away from that new proposed location, we're not being effective in what we're trying to accomplish with our coverage goal.
Yeah, this is Donovan with Union. I'll just chime in on that. So like I said, kind of Tyler, I'm not really positive where that location is. If we did do any looking at it in the past, it fell off very quickly because it most likely did not meet the coverage needs. Moving to the south and moving to the west, looking at the coverage plots that Chris has shared on the screen here, it would affect our sector loading on what cells are covering what parts of towns, as well as that interoperability between this site and that other site in Marbleton being able to work together to get the proper coverage that we're looking for.
This is Gudrid Espenscheid again, and I'm actually very aware of the site, living in Big Piney. That cemetery site is about a mile, probably about a mile, maybe mile and a half as the crow flies. It's south and west. It's up on a ridge that's much higher elevation. That was one of my questions. As that a prospective site, you could probably have a taller tower. Even behind there, you don't have the visual impairment that is, or the proximity to town that are two big concerns, or the site location kind of in a wetland riparian area. Those are all three main concerns to the residents of Big Piney in terms of your proper site location. So I was going to ask if that's something you would look into, or if that has been looked into, or that would probably be more accepted by the community as well, and continue to provide coverage.
So I have it pulled up on Google here. This is Donovan with Union again. Looking at that location, it really does move us to the south and to the west away from where we want that coverage, and would really kind of affect that sector loading and where we want our strong coverage to be to serve as good as we can.
So this is Gudrid Espenscheid again, and I'm sorry to dominate, and I'll be quiet and let somebody else ask a question. But I know that with the Pompey Tower you just put in at 90 feet, it has an area coverage of 10 miles, you had said. So I'm wondering how that site at a higher elevation and perhaps a higher tower, when satisfied at 10 miles, wouldn't satisfy the needs of the Big Piney Marbleton area. And that's at it would be at a much higher area level than 90 feet.
So this is Donovan with Union again. Big answer with that is capacity. So when we look at sites, we have two kind of big flavors looking at macro sites. We have coverage sites and capacity sites. The other site that you mentioned is a coverage site where we go for that large footprint, where we can make sure that there's at least some data in that footprint and calls are working. This proposed site in Big Piney is more of a capacity site where we want it more centralized, local, so that we can get not all of town on one single cell that's going to be overloaded, but we can balance that loading so that everyone's getting good speeds, good call quality, and good service.
Okay, it's Gudrid Espenscheid again. So would there be any way to replace the existing technology on the water towers with, you know, your 3G technology that's okay, that isn't Chinese fabricated, and then perhaps, you know, a new Union tower out at the cemetery to service the existing area, and perhaps a new area with your 4G LTE? Or is it specific, the 4G LTE, perhaps 5G, that you want right at that water tower or in that vicinity?
So
I think,
Donovan,
Donovan.
go ahead, Tyler.
Well, I was just going to there's another piece of this puzzle as a telecommunication provider, and that is staying relevant with the services that folks want to have. And LTE services, and in the future 5G services, those are the things that people are after. And those are, you know, the reasons why we're here and continue to try to provide these services to the folks in Wyoming. So, you know, we need to push the LTE service. That's what we're trying to accomplish in order to stay relevant against, you know, our competitors. Donovan, go ahead with what you were going to say.
No, that pretty much nails what I was going to say. A lot of our competitors are sunsetting 3G, interoperability on handsets moving forward, roaming partners, 3G's slowly being phased out of supported. So building a new 3G site just isn't feasible long term for us.
Okay, thank you. And if I might ask one last question, and then I'll hand the floor over to everybody else. But my last area of contention is this particular. First of all, I want to say that the millage, Wayne Barlow actually contacted me. The landowner contacted me last Friday, and I think he would like me to speak on behalf of him, not on behalf of him, but somewhat saying he's trying to service the community and Union all together. And you had mentioned that the proposed site was close to your existing site, so he really thought that would be a good workaround for everybody. So I don't want to vilify him by any means. And he mentioned that the Millage Hay Meadow at 140 feet tower is not one, which Chris had also said earlier, is not one that they are interested in. They actually do not want a tower there. So that leads me to this this point of this particular site, though, is really troublesome to me and to various other members of the community because, you know, it's in between North Piney Creek and an big irrigation ditch. The water table is right on the surface. It's a wetland, riparian, irrigated meadow area. It seems neither practical nor appropriate to put a tower in there. And it's not necessarily that we're against any sort of tower that needs to be put in, especially as you've justified your reasonings for that. But that particular site is troublesome for that reason. And so can you address those issues of the wetland, riparian, wet area?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Let me get back to the map here. So I think three things to comment on that. One is, you know, I know there's the creek or river to the north here, so we aren't able to go much further to the north. We do have the, you know, the setback from the parcel line here to the south. So there is a balance there between getting too far into that river area and trying to separate it from the community there a little bit. So we tried to find a balance for the exact location. Second point would be from a structural or foundational standpoint, being in the wetlands, we would run a geotech report to determine what type of foundation would work in that setup so that it would be structurally stable given the conditions, if it is a little bit wetter or could get wetter. And then third, we would conduct a full NEPA report on this and comply with any of their restrictions or requirements as well. So I think in going forward, those concerns would be addressed. I don't know, Tyler or Cody, if you had any more discussions about the specific location there, but those would be certainly things that we would ensure are addressed as we move forward.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
good.
Chrissy handled that good.
Okay, so there hasn't been any sort of wetland mitigation done yet on this site.
To answer that question, there hasn't been a wetland mitigation study done. We've done initial reports on some software that we use, and we don't foresee any like detrimental issues with the site location. And I guess to add to Chris's comment there, further into the NEPA process, we would expect there to be any kind of delineation requirements or anything that would, you know, alter our planned construction at that time. But like I said, we don't foresee any issue with that site, or we would not be here today.
You done, Goodrid?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had it. Yes, thank you.
I had a question about, I just wanted to get some more detail on Mr. Schlack's, when you were kind of going through the other co-locations, I used a couple of phrases. I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about, and I may not have this exactly right, so sorry if I'm misquoting you, but I think two or three times, I think you said the leased area would affect their overall operation, and that was a reason to not do it. And I was just wondering, could you give us a little bit more insight into that? Do you recall what I'm saying?
Yeah, so that would be just in discussions with potential landlords or parcel owners. Part of our requirement is to have that 100 by 100 lease area with the tower in it, and that allows to have, you know, equipment installed in there and room to work, things like that. And so it's possible that those landowners don't have a 100 by 100 foot spot that also works with the setbacks or the access that we were needing there. So it was more of getting to a suitable location for that landowner at that location.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That's helpful. I don't have any more questions. Right?
I would also add to that, there was a couple of locations that we considered before this one that we were even willing to shrink that typical lease area that we're after in order to accommodate or try to work with some of the other landowners. Unfortunately, they didn't come to fruition, but It's not like we're out here saying we need 100 by 100, and if we don't get it, then we're jumping to another landowner. We're willing to make concessions. Unfortunately, those two locations that I'm referring to just didn't work out.
Thank you.
Tammy, did you have any questions or comments at this point?
Take that as a no.
Okay. With that being said, we're gonna go ahead and open this
She
up.
said she
Oh.
cannot unmute.
Oh, can you hear me?
We got you.
Hey, thanks. Sorry about that. My computer just turned off about when you guys started asking questions, so I got back on as soon as possible. So if this is repetitive, please tell me. It's my fault. This is Tammy Crossan. I'm just kind of curious to what, when you went over the overlay of what 3G to 4G, that respective overlay and that coverage, how many more people are you able to serve with this new tower location? Because that's one thing I missed.
That's not redundant. We didn't ask that questions.
Oh, perfect. Great.
Yeah, so I think, and I might call on Donovan here in a second, but for 3G to 4G is an upgrade in technology. So 4G is going to be a stronger speed, less latency with the data connection. So it's going to allow for more video as you build your capabilities with your phones. And to part
Sure.
of the point that Donovan said, 3G, some providers are sunsetting that because it's an older technology, it's not needed anymore, and they're going with LTE or future 5G. So it's not so much of additional customers that you would get, it's just overlaying the new technology on top of the old, which eventually might be phased out by the providers. And
Okay.
Donovan, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I'll add in a little bit. The big thing when we talk about 3G versus 4G is mobile data on your phone. 3G was great back when it came out. Nowadays, when we look at how much data someone can use on 3G, we're talking maybe 3 to 5 megabits per second max. And once you start to get 5, 6 users on it trying to use data at the same time, that really starts to degrade. So LT, I think we've been able to see 10 to 20 users minimum on a cell, still hitting roughly 25 megabits per second at the same time. And all depending on whatever spectrum's deployed, that number can go up. If more spectrum's deployed, we have more capacity. Other thing is voice quality. So 3G is a circuit switched network for voice, so it's more analog for that voice. When we move to LTE and voice over LTE, it's packet switched, so it's higher definition on your voice calls, so it's a little crisper sounding, it's a lot cleaner, and you can understand the person at the other end a lot better.
Thank you. You answered my question because I do know the difference between 3 and 4G. I just didn't know if the capacity was there to add more people, but
Yeah, it's definitely a capacity add as we move from 3G to 4G.
I don't know if this is I'm just kind of curious. Is anyone else offering 4G in in Marbleton and Big Piney?
At this point, any of the big 3 carriers that have service in there would be on either 4G
Or higher?
or higher. I
Okay.
don't think any of them have gotten 5G in Big Piney yet. But I know AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile have all pretty much sunset their 2G and 3G networks, so their minimum now is 4G.
So I have a question for you, and I know that obviously it's very hard to foresee the future and how things will develop, but we've had a lot of discussion tonight and in the past over upgrading equipment, upgrading to keep up with the times. So my question to you is do you, for whatever it's worth, do you anticipate that this new tower could hopefully sustain with any upgrades that would need to be done over the years? Because I totally understand new technology, new equipment, things ever evolving. But do you feel that this is the facility that could withstand upgrades over the years and not have to be built more upon or expanded?
Yeah, I think, Tyler, if you want to add anything about kind of future expectations, but the goal of this tower would be to build it so it works for today and allows for, hopefully many years in the future. So, I mean, we look 20, 25 years out in terms of these locations and being able to continue to provide service. So, outside of something drastically changing with the technology, I think this should be able to handle the equipment going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I would just add, there was extensive internal conversation about where to go, once the ordinance was revised or the regulations, and how to best suit the needs of our network, our customers, and comply with the regulations as they're written now. So yes, we talked well into the future, and we're comfortable with the way that we have proposed this site to be what it is into the future.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board at this point? Okay, with that being said, we're going to turn this over to public comment. The way that we're going to run this is that we'll start with public comment in the room. One at a time, please. Please be very respectful. Yes, and if you will come and step up to the microphone, please state your name. And then any questions and comments, please refer to us, and then just a matter of process. And then the applicants can answer any questions. So we'll go ahead and start with anyone in the room.
Sorry to interject.
Yes.
Can I ask a couple questions for
Oh,
clarification?
yeah. Sorry, backing up.
No,
Sorry.
I apologize.
No.
I just think this may be helpful, just questions for clarification, just from the presentation versus what was in the application. One thing I noticed in the application, it says that there's room for 3 co-locates. It says that a couple times. Can you please clarify if it's 1 or 3, and if will be designed for 1 or 3? That's one of my questions.
Yeah, I think with the updated regulations, we are leaving room for 1 additional co-location. I think the tower itself, when it gets designed, could be up to additional co-locators, but that would be much lower, and I think not as desirable. So I think union plus 1 co-locator is what this would be good for.
And can you please clarify, just looking through the application, you showed an elevation plan, and the elevation plan, the figure did not match what was in the application. And I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page as far as what's proposed. The equipment set on the application had like 3 sets of antennas, and this one has 2.
Yeah, so I think that was the same update. I think in the application, that's just for a visual look at it, and it says may not match the actual equipment. So what was shown in the presentation here tonight shows the 2 co-locators for a visual of what this would look like. So, I mean, it's possible you could add more to it lower in the future, but at this point, it would be union and 1 additional co-locator is what we're seeking as part of the application.
I guess what I'm asking though, for the antenna array that Union is proposing, is it two sets, or is this going to be the full thing? Like, what's actually being proposed for the antenna array?
I can answer that question. So the actual antenna array that would be deployed right out of the gate, out of the box, if this were to be constructed, is that very top, what we call rad center, or, section of antennas. Like Chris mentioned, the one right underneath that is just a visual to say, yes, we are designing this to allow co-location if that were to ever come to fruition. Does that help answer your question?
So on this plan, are you saying that these sets are actually co-location?
Yes.
Okay.
So. And my guess is that those were just not caught. And I'm not sure why there's a discrepancy between the application and this presentation.
And I think having some clarity on that is important for future modifications to the tower to understand what is being presented tonight and like what may be able to be approved for in the future administratively.
Yeah, and I think to go back to that statement. This is for visual representation of what could be. What we're wanting to deploy is just that top section of antennas and radios.
Okay, thank you very much. That helps. And my last question, I just was curious, as far as the alternative analysis, was there any combination of alternative analysis that was done considering like a combination of facilities rather than just one facility to meet the standard that you're seeking for your outreach, such as like small cells or just multiple smaller facilities?
Donovan, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. Really, for what we were targeting here, we were looking for a single replacement. It also comes down to the business need of things. So when we look at multiple smaller facilities, small cells versus a single macro site, that really, the big driver for that is capacity. And we see that with what we have on our site up in Marbleton right now, and that
We lose him.
did I mute?
Oh,
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. I don't know where I cut out there. So I'll just go from the beginning. Our main look at this was for a single macro site to replace the water tank site. As we look towards multiple smaller locations and small cells, the biggest advantage that we get with that is additional capacity. And as we look at our site in Marbleton and this replacement site here, we foresee that being sufficient capacity for multiple years to come, that a single macro site would hit that coverage and capacity that we need.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we'll try this again. Okay, we're gonna open this up to public comment. So like I said, if one at a time, you guys want to come up, state your name and any questions or comments that you have.
But this is Bettina Sparrow.
It
Is
is.
it turned on? Yes?
It is.
Got it. Thank you. Maybe I haven't been to enough planning and zoning meetings. Maybe I haven't read through the regs far enough. But the need here does not seem like a community need. It seems like a business need. And therefore, I am more on the negative end of the proposal than if the answer to the question had been Are you seeking more users and enlarging your region of service? And but the answer was not yes to that. That wasn't quite the question, but it was the intent of the question. But the answer was more, we're enhancing service to existing customers. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's the responses work?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
I would just like to make a quick comment to that. I appreciate your response, and I would just add that Union's always looking to add customers. You know, we have an existing customer base that we're trying to serve, but you know, just like any company, we're always looking to gather customers and expand our network, no doubt. So I just wanted to leave that there.
Hi, I'm Staff Polk. I'm a resident in Metal Arc subdivision, right adjacent to where this tower is being proposed. I have a couple of concerns about this. One is I think that the application really misrepresented the visual effect it's going to have in our community. The pictures that they presented are, I think, misleading because that tower looks like a toothpick in those pictures. And where we live, our views are, we call them $1 million views. And this tower will forever ruin that. And it's not going to be just a little toothpick. It's going to be a major obstruction that will be there for the remainder of our lives. The other thing is there's a contradiction in their application. They distinctly said they have room for 3 locators. And now we hear that it's just going to be 1 locator. And I'd like clarification on that and the assurance that there wouldn't be 3 locators in the future. And they did not submit either an environmental impact for the riparian area, and they did not submit a predictive analysis on worst case scenario to the RF factor on the residents when they do expand in the future. Thank you.
Great.
Thank
Thank you, sir. Oh, yeah, whenever anybody comes out there to speak, would you mind signing your name? Oh, sure. Sorry, I just got the memo. Sorry. It's, oh, thank you.
I'll put my name down
Every time.
every time.
Can I make a friendly suggestion to the chair? This is in our bylaws, it spells out the way that this goes, and typically the public comment would precede any, they would have their time to speak, and then the applicant would have a time to respond. Just sitting past it will drag on and on and on and on. If we,
Yeah,
but
yes,
you're the boss, so whatever you say, I'm just.
okay, so yes, we'll proceed. Great. Also in water.
My name's Ray Pape, property owner, concerned citizen, right? I'm against it. I use AT&T because Union was not a good provider when I needed them. And they have a little a little small booster deal out by my residence. I get zero help from that, even with my AT&T coverage. So I think we all struggle with, right, low spots everywhere, dropping calls. That's why I have a cell phone booster in my truck. With that, I'm kind of like staff, right? AI is a wonderful tool, right? I took a stab at the Photoshop too, right? So I told him my apartment buildings were 25 foot tall. That's just an estimate. And I said, put a 125-foot tower next to it out in the meadow. That's what I come up with. So I mean, it's just comparison. It's just to throw stuff out. I got plenty of copies if you want some. we may not win and this tower will come anyway. And if that happens, maybe we should look at, right? It is big piney, so maybe we should have a big pine tree, right? Spend some money, make it, try to blend in, not just paint. Let's make it look like a pine tree or part of the scenery. So, and I know the county's not going to reduce my property value, but that tower that close to my property value, if I go to resell, it's going to have a lower property value. It's noted, it's proven. Cell tower does not increase my property value or anybody's property value around that area. So, and at some point I am going to sell and retire. So yeah, and the county's not going to reduce my tax bracket. So, I do appreciate all the information because you guys said you answered a lot of my questions. And we already talked about the wetlands, environmental impact study, right? If this was the gas and oil industry, it would be bogged down for a while, because of the hoops we have to go through, putting it on private property, kind of sidetracks some of that stuff. So I'm against it.
Okay. I am Kinsey Voss. I'm council member for Big Piney. I do not like speaking in public, so bear with my voice. I have 3 also. AI is wonderful. I had one of our council members do theirs. You can lower it a little bit if they're just having the one. But I decided to take pictures during the spring greenery, and multiple views that it would hinder. I do have one question that I would like Union to kind of like take in is, would they ever get a hold of Big Piney, the town, and kind of get together on the water tower, because it is older, and kind of restructuring it, or what we could do to help, what they could do to help to benefit everybody, the town, people with their water, Union, people who use Union, kind of get everybody taken care of. So I have that question for them. And then it just kind of takes away from our water tower. How would I say this? The small town aesthetics. When you drive into a small town, you see the water tower. We're trying to get it painted with the town of Big Piney to make it more eye pleasing and have a little bit more community pride. So I'm representing Big Piney, and for the people that just don't feel it's necessary to be there. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good evening. I'm Shane Voss. I'm actually a resident. I live just across from Mr. Polk here, and I'm also the mayor. So I'm going to represent a lot of individuals that are not here today. And one thing as councilwoman that we have, Voss says, and Mr. Polk, we have $1 million views, and people of the Down and Big Piney are pretty loyal, right? So if a commercial can change what people drink, I'd imagine you put a tower in front of their view, just exactly what might happen there. So those are a few options you're going to have to look. And we appreciate the services. Like bar none, we appreciate the services that Union has. We just don't like the location. So, and that's coming from a lot of individuals over in Big Piney that love seeing the views. And we all know technology has to advance, but we can advance it in a different location, that will not obstruct that sort of view or anything like that, or ruin property value or anything like that. I mean, I don't think that's too hard to look at, in retrospect. If you take a look at everything that we need, people enjoy that view. I don't come here to look at a cell tower. You know what I mean? People don't come to Big Piney to, if you want to see that, go to city, So I'm just representing everybody else in Piney that I've spoken with that has come up to me, because I've actually had to find out that we were getting this tower by a piece of paper from Union. They never came to us, never spoke to the town, never gave any feels on that. So I just want to throw that there and ask a question as to why? Why did you guys not come speak with us about the proposition of where it's going to be located and try to get any feedback from us as residents there or any of the rest of our town? We've had to read a piece of paper, then go ask our community members individually their thoughts on it. So that's kind of my thought. And I'm all for Union being there. I'm all for providing service. I just don't like the location along with multiple residents. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
There any other questions or comments in the room? Okay.
Ray Pape again. And it is for Union, right? We know, right, we're phasing out 3G, going 4G with future growth of 5G. How does that footprint, right? I kind of heard rumors that, right, when you go to 5G, now you need more towers, more repeaters, more stuff, right, to bounce back to get that footprint. So I would like some clarification on that, because this might just be the tip of the iceberg, right? And 5-10 years down the road, now we need another tower blocking our views. So just throwing that out there. I forgot to ask about the footprint.
Okay, so I'm Wayne Barlow, and we're the landowner, unfortunately, to a lot of these proposed sites that are being looked at by Union. And I just want to say that we've been working with these guys, I think, probably for close to 3 years now, to try to come up with a site that the best suits their needs and our needs as well, and the community's needs as well. So I'd just like to say that I think they've been through a lot of questions and stuff and answered everybody's questions pretty much. And the biggest thing that I see that people have a problem with is the location. And I totally get that. Regardless of where you put these things, there's going to be a group of people that are going to be affected more than other people. And I just don't know how you can weigh one person's better location at the fault of somebody else's. And so, I just think that they've done their due diligence to try to make this thing as eye appealing as possible. Granted, they might do the pine tree looking thing or something like that. But we're going to look at this thing every day ourselves. So I just want to know that it's not something that we stuck away in a corner somewhere. We're never going to have to look at either. As far our operation, we feel like this is the best site for us. And I know the visual thing is a big deal. But to me, if you put it down there close to the water towers that are already impacting the view, is a far better place than putting it somewhere else where you're creating a new impact. So I believe it's the best place to put it. And I feel like, it probably is where it should be, to satisfy the most needs for the most people. So.
Great, thank you, sir. Is there any other comments in the room? Okay, with that being said, we'll go to online. Is there anyone online that has a question or a comment? Okay, now we'll give the applicant an opportunity to respond to public comments and questions.
All righty, I'll try to be quick here. I jotted a few notes down. One is environmental impact and NEPA, the kind of regulations that we're under. We're required to do a pretty extensive review of the site through the FCC and abide by all our federal rules and regulations. We're not opposed to, proving out and submitting what we're required to do as a condition of an approval or however the commission would see fit to that. I don't want to make it sound like we're trying to go around any requirements that we're obligated to follow or bend the rules, whether it be on private or federal or public lands. That also applies to any type of requests or mandates that were put in place in regard to the water table or any kind of floodplains that we're building in. We adhere to those rules and the suggestions of the folks that do our reports. Again, there was a mention of a contradiction to the application, which I don't disagree with. I think that can be a little misrepresentative of what we're trying to accomplish here. So I want to clarify that one more time. Union's proposed equipment is on the top of that tower. Anything after that, I would assume would have to be brought toward at least Sublette County in regard to what a co-location would look like. We have requirements that we have to build a structure that can house additional carriers, and we do that and comply with that. So that, like I said, those are visual representations of what that tower could be capable of. I'm not going to disagree at all that those photo simulations that were in that slideshow were subpar. They could have been better. When I saw the one behind the tree next to the home, I was a little disappointed. That can be on me. I had a chance to review that and I missed that. I think one thing that we tried to show, we did have some additional pictures of a monopole that was painted in that very next slide in hopes to kind of show what realistically would be there. The other thing that I think is kind of unfortunate in this regard is that we have some interesting town versus county lines. So conversations and communication, I won't disagree, could have been better in that regard. We're here because that piece of property is, through the county, and here we are running through that process, looking to get this structure built in that location. So, I can take the fall for that as well. Could we have had some communication with the town more effectively? Yes, I'll agree to that. The bottom, I guess, and in closing here, I agree that any location in a town like Big Piney is going to be contentious. We're looking at best serving a network, and it's going to be above 60 feet. And there's not a lot of structures in Big Piney that are that tall. So we're doing our best to comply with regulations as well as serving our coverage needs and our customers. And we think that we have put an application and made concessions from our original proposal versus this one to accomplish all those as best we are able to. So I think that's all I have to add. I appreciate everybody being here and being willing to be, part of a civil discussion. And I think that's all I have. I'll leave it open to anybody else from Union on the phone.
This is Chris. I think, a couple of things came up about community need. I think to Tyler's point, we're trying to find a workable solution to cover the area and the needs, of both Big Piney and up to Marbleton, as well as the surrounding area there. There was one comment regarding kind of future 5G towers, and maybe Donovan, if you're able to kind of explain future needs, but this would be, considered a macro tower, and this would remain in place to provide kind of that overall coverage for the area, which is going to be needed. Future technology with smaller cells and stuff like that, I know is going in very urban areas. But I think at this point, again, this would be a tower that would be used for, the foreseeable future to cover the needs of the community here.
Yeah, this is Donovan with Union. I can weigh in on that tower question, but as we look to 5G in the future, a lot of what we deploy today can be used and become 5G. As we look for kind of expanding with those small cells, as was pointed out, the big thing that we see a lot of in the industry is power pole light towers. So it's just a small canister on a power pole. So as that 5G kind of expansion and more towers that was mentioned happens, those are a lot smaller sites, really kind of hidden for the most part.
Thanks, Donovan. And yeah, it wouldn't
This
replace
is
the
good,
need
Rick.
for the. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You guys have the floor. I just want to
Okay.
make one comment before closing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it doesn't replace the need for this type of coverage. So I think this would still be needed. It's just as future technology comes, it might be a different look, and obviously would have different submissions at that time.
This is Gudrid Espenscheid again, and before I just know that in our tower code there's a section that talks about significant adverse impacts. With all that in mind of what you said, there is no doubt that we say that the requested adjustment will not result in significant adverse visual, scenic, environmental, or community impacts. And there seems to be the community members saying there is a visual impact and there is a community impact because of the proximity to town, and there is an environmental impact they feel because of the site location. So those three things are just very concerning to the people, of that community, irregardless of whatever justifications to it. This site just is not that anybody's against a tower, as I've said before, but this particular site does not seem to be, practical or appropriate for those three reasons specifically. Thank you very much, though, for your time, and I appreciate all your care and your time in this meeting for us all.
Thank you. All right, so moving on, I would like to just do a quick overview of the things that we need to take into consideration, with these being new regulations that we recently adopted. Mind you, they're fresh in our mind, or well, somewhat. But I think it would be good to kind of quickly go over, and probably good information for those of you that are attending in the public, of the things that we have to take into consideration when we're making these decisions.
I think just to
Would you
point,
like me to read it through?
I think just to point out the staff report, it does go through the development requirements and it has analysis and then just some notes related to the development requirement. And then it goes through the application next and just kind of a review of what was included and what things may be suggested to be conditions with the application if it is choose to move forward. And then later on, it goes through those different, the chapter 5 conditional use findings. That is another thing that's required, is to meet the chapter 5 conditional use requirements. And then there's more though, once the, just it goes through orderly of the regulations. But the requirements, the findings, I believe that's on page, sorry, I just talked a lot more.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
While she's looking, I would just like to point out, to those of you that aren't aware, that we recently did write our new regulations. In the past, we never had regulations that were directly for community patient towers. So this has been a process for us as well. This is our first application to go through with the new regulations. We tried to be very thorough because trying to look forward to the future, and we understand that this is something that is going to come up probably more and more frequently, and things that we need to address. So I think that it's super important, especially on one of these first ones. But on all of them, I just want to ensure you guys that we are very thorough about these now. We have definitely, we definitely upped our expectations, and because like I said, in the past, we didn't really have any structure to go off of. So we definitely look into these very thoroughly now.
Did find the relative section. Do you want me to read it or?
Sure.
So as far as for the conditional use approval standard, before recommending or approving a macro tower conditional use permit, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners shall find that the application meets the criteria and findings provided within Chapter 5 conditional uses, the requirements of this chapter, that the height is the minimum necessary, alternatives have been reasonably evaluated, and the visual, scenic, and community impacts are minimized. The approval shall require proof that proper bonding and insurance be submitted to the county within 30 days of approval, and that's just for the conditional use criteria.
Super. Thank you. All right. With that being said, do we have comments or further questions from the board?
I have questions. We got several questions for Union and then a couple for the audience members. I'll start with the Union questions. So I'm wondering if there were several comments made, and one of the criteria we're asked to consider is impact to land values. There were several comments made suggesting that folks feel like it will negatively impact the value of their property. And I'm wondering if Union can respond with any sort of evidence-based response to counter that, or what is your stance on that suggestion?
I'll jump in, and if Tyler has anything more, I think it's challenging. Property values can go up or down for lots of different reasons. I think providing a strong cellular network in an area can be a big boost to a community. So having that is important and would overall increase property values across the board. I don't disagree that sites closer to the tower, there's going to be more of a visual impact, but I think we're trying to work with the area, what's best for both coverage as well as a location. And I think we've made some adjustments to the tower to make it maybe a little bit more visually appealing than our first submission.
Okay. Anything else, or is that it?
From me, that's it. Tyler, do you have anything to add? Otherwise, I think probably covers it.
No, I don't have anything additional to add to that.
All right. There's been a lot of concern about the fact that this is in a wetlands area, and there is no delineation locating the tower foundation generator. There's no soil stability study, which are required. So I'm just curious. I wonder if you could speak to help us understand what are the risks and hazards of having a tower, generator, other associated kind of infrastructure in a wetlands area?
Well, I think it depends on what kind of wetland you're talking about. This is a irrigated wetland. So there would be a couple of risks. Most of them would be runoff, which would overflow a ditch, or lots of irrigation. We have structures that exist today in areas that are very similar. Usually it involves a foundation that might be a little higher out of the ground. Small things, additional rebar in a foundation or things of that nature, all things that we deal with on a regular basis, high water tables. Those are things that we can engineer around. And like I said, we've done a prelim analysis of this site. We don't feel like there's any risk to deploying here, or else we wouldn't have taken this project this far. And like I said, I think we have no issue presenting any kind of findings to Sublette County that prove our case in regard to anything that we have to mitigate in regard to delineation or water tables or anything of that nature.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, right, it sounds like if I were going to answer the question based on what you said, it sounds like the answer is the risk would be structural instability, and that your mitigation mechanisms would be raising the foundation. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. And I would say our risk factor to the location is minimal from what we're seeing and what we expect.
Okay. Are there any other risks or hazards to the actual, surrounding lands, riparian area, wetlands?
No, I mean, not that I'm aware of. We're not damaging the environment by any means. We, excavate and backfill with the same soils. We use the least invasive types of excavation methods as we are able to, trenching, boring, things that, don't impact the topography of the terrain. So I can't see any, and I would ask if I'm missing anything, anyone on the phone, please chime in.
I don't hear anybody chiming in. And can I just ask, so you did not, there was a report that our application asked applicants to provide that you did not provide. You said you wanted to wait until after there was approval. Can you explain that to us?
A NEPA analysis?
I think that's
what
soil
I'm
stability study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all those reports have a cost to Union, and we need to ensure that we, have success on the approval of a site location before we start down that road of the finalization of the engineering and design. So I guess, like I said, we hold off on those things until we get a P&Z approval, and that triggers the next steps of our process to finalize all those, designs and things of that nature and that report.
Okay. I guess so in our regulations, I'm just going down a list here, so sorry if we jump around a bit. We discourage chain link fence, I think, explicitly in our regulations, and I think the proposal is to do a chain link fence. Am I wrong about that?
Discourage chain link fencing. I know that we have a site that's on Sublette County property that's in town, that's just on the hill, that we had to do a wood fence. And if that was missed in the application, I think we should include it as a condition. I don't think there's any problem whatsoever.
I think we try to suggest more aesthetically pleasing sort of.
Yeah, and that's a fairly common request from many jurisdictions that we approach.
Okay. I guess on that same note, there was a suggestion from the audience that maybe you do one of the things that look like a tree tower. Is that something that you would be amenable to?
I think I will put it this way. Yes, we are amenable to a stealth design such as a monopine. We get very mixed reviews on if that matches the aesthetics of the community, if that, if that's going to change the perception of the project as a whole in the location that we're proposing. We feel personally that, a painted monopole is the least contentious in regard to a view shed and a sight line that we have to offer, because you're adding additional material to a structure with a tree, you know, and the other side of that is you're adding artificial limbs which have a weight to them. So that kind of counteracts what we're trying to accomplish with being able to house additional carriers. That being said, there are ways to engineer the tower to be a monopine if that were something that would make more sense in regard to the commission's thoughts about this project.
Oh, there was one other thing. I thought I just want to check on, there was on the reclamation bond. I think there was two different figures that were given, suggestions. There was a letter from the CEO, and then there was an engineer prepared estimate. And I think it says something that there's a 150% bond that's requested. And I just wanted to
150% bond?
Since that figure drives the 150% bond. Yep. But I guess I just wanted to peg it to the right number. The two different references, both in the CU letter and then the engineer prepared estimate. Well, I don't know. I don't want to make an assumption. I want to just ask which is the right thing to.
Well, I think we need to be clear about a reclamation of the project. A reclamation is the cost to reclaim that piece of property back to its original state. So there is a number that we calculate to accomplish that project. So let's say for some reason in the future that tower is no longer needed or whatever the circumstance would be. We have put a cost to reclaim that piece of property and get it back to as close as possible to its original state, if that may make sense. There's probably, and I'm not sure, what exactly you're looking at or referring to.
So in the regulations, it says macro tower shall be bonded in an amount equal to 150% of the engineer prepared cost estimate for removal of the wireless facility and reclamation of the site to be pre-development conditions, including removal of all equipment, foundations, access improvements, and restoration of disturbed areas. So, Haley, you seem like you know what I'm talking about.
We did discuss this, and they did with the supplemental information. They provided a cost estimate for the reclamation of about 106,000. And that requirement is that the bond would be submitted within 30 days of the approval. So the bond is not necessary to be submitted at this time.
Right. I just wanted to make sure we were pegging that to the right
Yes.
number. Okay.
Yes. And they actually, in the wording, they said that they were willing to submit the bond within 30 days.
Okay. Great. Okay, I think those are all my questions for you. The only other question I had was for Councilmember Voss and Mayor Voss. They were there, and I was just curious what your thoughts were on a monopine, which I now know the technical term for. If I'm wondering if that would change your opinion at all, or if that you would see that as favorable or unfavorable, or what your stance would be. The pine tree looking monopole.
Mr. Cave had.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say no-ish, because now you're just pulling the eye just farther away from our views onto that pine tree. Yes, we are big piney, but it would I think it would be not as welcome. Yeah.
What if there was a big Paul Bunyan next to it or something?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so that's kind of our take on it.
Okay, thanks for that feedback. I'm just curious. Okay, I do not have any other questions this time. Thank you.
Tammy, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
And Gudrid had to jump off real quick, but I'm going to call her right. Vote.
Okay, so one thing I did want to mention too is we discussed the conditional use permit, but as far as also going through, the requirements of the wireless facility adjustment, you want to take a look at some of those requirements, or at least what the findings need to be, just so before you move into the motion.
Mark,
That's so it's on, oh gosh, my regulation pages are. It's section. Yes, I tabbed it on your page. See if it's.
It's page 27.
Haley's different than you, Tammy. Thank you for the.
She's better than me. She's got it all down.
Okay, and then just maybe.
Yeah, so just as a quick review here for all of us, just the requirements that the applicant must demonstrate. The applicant shall demonstrate strict compliance to the regulations, would prevent the facility from providing the intended service area or coverage, physical, engineering, structural or siting constraints, prevent compliance with one or more standards of this chapter. So sorry, the applicant shall demonstrate with substantial evidence that alternative locations, structures, configuration, and co-location described in section 3K, co-location and siting hierarchy, have been evaluated, and documentation describing the basis for not selecting those alternatives has been submitted. The adjustment is the minimum necessary. The deviation requested is the smallest amount of relief needed to achieve the service objective. Even with the adjustment, the project complies with the intent of section 3 development requirements and standards relating to the concealment, visual minimization, safety, scenic protection, and environmental and wildlife considerations. The requested adjustment will not result in significant adverse visual, scenic, environmental, or community impacts beyond those allowed by this chapter. And when an adjustment is requested to exceed height limits, the applicant must also demonstrate no existing structures within the geographical search area meet the engineering or coverage requirements. Existing structures lack significant structural capacity. Existing structures are otherwise unsuitable due to technical constraints and the increased height and the minimum necessary to provide reasonable coverage or capacity. It also, just to go over the approval standards that we need to review, a wireless facility adjustment. And when I say adjustment, just to make everything clear to everybody, is the excessive height is what we're covering with the adjustment. Just make sure we're all on the same page. The project complies with section 3 development requirement standards and section 4 permit requirements by facility type. The facility will continue to comply with all applicable FCC, FAA, electrical, structural, and safety requirements. The purpose and intent of this chapter are preserved. A wireless facility adjustment may be denied if the county finds that the requested deviation exceeds the scope of a wireless facility adjustment and would require approval of a conditional use permit under this chapter. The requested deviation would undermine the purpose and intent of this chapter because it would create a demonstrable risk to public health or safety supported by substantial evidence, interfere with use of the public right-of-way, or make it difficult for the county to reasonably police, operate, or manage wireless facilities, and this impact is supported by evidence. The requested deviation would result in significant adverse visual, scenic, environmental, and community impacts that are not adequately mitigated, or the applicant has failed to provide substantial evidence required by this section to justify the requested adjustment. So those are the things that we have to take into consideration when making our recommendation. I also wanted to clarify too, because I had several questions from the public in regards to how this process works. So I just want to clarify with everyone that we will vote on a recommendation, but it still does have to go to the Board of County Commissioners. So just to make that clear, the decision here tonight is not the end all be all. This will recommend and then go on to the Board of County Commissioners. So there's another step in there. So I just wanted to clarify that because I had several questions in regards to that. Do you have any other questions or comments? Yes.
Yeah, I'll just say that, and I think there's a, I mean, I'll just, as a, well, a couple things. The public should know that the way that we do motions too, if you haven't been to these, is whatever motion is made, we always make it in the affirmative regardless, just as an FYI. I struggle for several reasons on this. One is I think that there is a legitimate issue with the scenic values that have been raised, and I think that that's pretty clear from the images provided by everybody here today. We also are asked to make a finding as part of the conditional uses, which is the proposed location of the use and conditions under which it would be operated or maintained will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. That's a statement that we have to find in the affirmative. We have to be able to say that statement and say, I agree with that. And if you can't, there's two real findings under the conditional uses that's under Chapter 5. If you can't say both of them, that you agree with both of them, then you have to deny the application. And I have to say that without having some, like the soil stability, the NEPA report, some of the engineering things, the evidence is the burden of the applicant to provide to us in order to be able to make these findings. I just have to say we don't have it in front of us tonight for me to say, yeah, I see that the evidence is clear, that I can make that statement in the affirmative. So those are the two biggest issues. The first one I will say is repeated in several locations throughout all of the criteria and finding or factors and things we're asked to consider. But I don't know, those are my comments on my take on this particular application. I will also say that I think, I appreciate the diligence that has been shown by Union Wireless. I find Union Wireless to generally be a very good actor in the community. I think relative to some things that we've seen from other folks in this industry, that Union is a stand-up company that really does put their best foot forward and is a engaged member of the community. So I say that without any disfavor. Those comments are without any disfavor towards Union Wireless. I'm a fan of Union Wireless. So yeah, I'll stop rambling there.
Tammy, do you have any comments?
I'll just say I do agree with Chris and his comment. I won't go in any further and take up more time because I pretty much agree with what he said. So thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate, you made a comment that we don't have some of those reports on hand currently. And that's true. And like I said, I think if that's an issue, then that should be a condition of approval to include them. Like I said, we don't foresee any issue that would prevent us from continuing on with this project. And we would be willing to prove that by submitting the reports to the county as a condition of an approval. But like I said, it's just a kind of a what comes first type of an issue. And we're talking a pretty extensive amount of money and time to produce those reports. So our method of building a site, there's the leasing aspect and then the planning and zoning aspect, and then all of the engineering and environmental documents come after that. So I just want to reiterate one more time that Union is more than willing to prove that there are no impacts like the regulations call out to this project.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that, in the creation of the tower regulations, we invited and had folks from the industry participate, and that never came up as nobody ever called that out as, hey, maybe that shouldn't be part of the application. Maybe that should be later. And maybe that's legitimately just got missed. It's unfortunate that we find ourselves in this situation tonight. And I think maybe we should consider whether we should update the application process if that's a legitimate, well, I'm not saying it's not legitimate, but under further consideration, I think that's something that we should look at. However, to say that we could do a condition, we could. I really personally am not into the idea of using conditions as a way to address the absence of information that should be part of an application. I think conditions are best used when they are a mitigation mechanism to a known issue, which is what CUPs are all about. It's how can we provide conditions to this in order to mitigate known issues, not let's scoot on by the fact that we don't have the evidence before us with the condition. And so I personally don't love that solution. I suppose another alternative might be to, and I have to look at our bylaws for the appropriate term. I'm going to use a term, and I'm not sure if it's what's actually in our bylaws, but continue the application and ask for that information. But I think we may find ourselves in the same dilemma in the fact that you just said that costs you a lot of money to do that, and maybe you would not want to take that route. So I don't know. I'm curious, Haley, if as the planning administrator, if you have any thoughts on that particular dilemma.
To respond, we did discuss some of these things with the applicant, and because of the timing and just the communication going back and forth, this application, a substantial amount of time went into this with review and conversations with Union. And we discussed it as a possible that, hey, I understand this is not included in here. And then I even just said, we could include this as a condition as part of the approval. But I also think if this is something that the board would like to have this information now, there are a few other things as well that I believe are on that list of proposed conditions. But if the board would like to see those before approval, that's something that could be considered, for this to be continued into a future meeting once those items are provided.
Yeah, I think it's also fair to say that this is the first time we've put in these regulations to use. And so I think, I know there was a lot of work for all parties, and I think that is a special circumstance to consider this case too.
I believe the list of conditions are.
Yeah, they're on page 27 of the staff report.
So I would like to make a few comments. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for coming here tonight in regards to this application. Thank Union. I concur definitely with Mr. Lisenick that Union has been great for us to work with. We really appreciate it. think that we all need to recognize something here is finding the balance as we move into the future. Because personally, I run 2 businesses. I have 4 kids. My whole life is right here. And it's funny how all of us, we expect good service. We want good service, how everything runs off of that. And yet it's hard to find that balance, because then there are sacrifices to make in one way or another. And how do you find that happy medium in keeping up with technology, keeping up with that service, but also not ruining exactly why we all live where we live. And then that's the hard part, is finding that balance, because I completely appreciate where you folks are coming from that live out there. I live out in the middle of nowhere, up Horse Creek, and I know I would feel the same way. I had a tower going up right by my house. So it's hard. It's hard. I feel like sitting in our position is how do you deviate that? You know, I will say I'm a little bit disappointed to hear that Union didn't work more cohesively with the town. I would have liked to have heard that a little bit more in just better communication there. And I get the process. I do. Like I said, I run businesses of my own, and I understand it, but I would have liked to have heard more communication with the town to see if there was any other solutions to that they could have worked better together. So this is, like I said, it's a hard one, because I see all aspects, definitely. I'm gonna call Gudrid. She said she should be available. So do you have any final comments? Yep.
And you're all, I'm guessing you can't hear that. Can you hear that? You-
Got you on speaker. No, I think you're good. It's at the rodeo. Watch your voice. Sorry. You're good. Okay, if you have any final comments, and then we're gonna go move forward with making a motion.
Maybe she didn't hear you.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you. So do we have a motion?
I think it's probably easiest if I make the motion. The only one in the room that's the non-chair. All right, so having considered the conditional use permit findings contained in Chapter 5 of the Sublette County Zoning and Development Regulations, the development standards and permit requirements contained in Chapter 14, and the information contained within the application record, I move to recommend approval of the Union Wireless conditional use permit to construct a 120-foot telecommunications tower with antenna up to 124 feet and associated facilities on property owned by Millage Partnership located in the agricultural A1 zoning district, subject to any conditions of approval adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission. This recommendation is based upon the findings contained in Chapter 5, Conditional Uses, and Chapter 14, Wireless Telecommunication Facilities of the Sublette County Zoning and Development Regulations. Conditions of this conditional use permit include the following. 1, any future increase in tower height shall require approval of all applicable Sublette County permits, including a wireless facility adjustment and conditional use permit if required by the regulations, and shall not be processed as an eligible facility request. 2, prior to construction, provide Sublette County structural certification by a Wyoming licensed professional engineer demonstrating compliance with TIA-222 for foundations, towers, and support structures. 3, prior to construction, provide Sublette County available information from a Wyoming licensed engineer regarding property soil stability, erosion control, sedimentation, and flooding problems. 4, the applicant shall provide documentation identifying whether any portion of the tower, equipment, compound, access improvements, or utility improvements are located within a mapped floodplain or wetland area, and shall obtain any required permits or approvals from applicable regulatory agencies. 5, that the planning administrator approve an alternative to the chain link fence. And 6, that the planning administrator approve the paint color, since that seemed to be left out. I mean, there's a proposed one or alternative, so I think you're the best person to make that call, Haley. So those would be, I added those last 2. If there's anybody opposed to that, speak up. All right.
So we have a motion to approve the application with the conditions of,
Maybe just say 6 conditions.
with the 6 conditions listed. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
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 Nay. Motion does not pass. Thank you, Goodred. Okay, good luck. Keep me posted. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. All right, well, thank you guys very much. We really appreciate it. And that will that move on to the next county commissioners meeting? Do you know?
July 7th. Or when is the next?
Be July 7th. A motion need to be made about the wireless facility.
I think we have to do it. Yeah. We have to do both either way.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's my bad.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that, having considered the wireless facility adjustment demonstration requirements and approval standards contained in Chapter 14 of the Sublette County zoning and development regulations, and the information contained within the application record, I move to recommend approval of the Union Wireless wireless facility adjustment to allow a 120-foot telecommunications tower where the maximum permitted structure height in the agricultural A1 zoning district is 60 feet, subject to any conditions of approval adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission. This recommendation is based upon the findings and approval standards contained in Chapter 14, wireless telecommunications facilities of the Sublette County zoning and development regulations. And maybe for the record, we'll state that Gudrid Espenscheid is no longer with us in this meeting.
So we have a motion to approve the affirmative for the wireless facility adjustment. Do we have a second?
I guess that would be up to me. Yes.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
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 Nay. Motion does not pass. Sorry, that was my bad. I missed the second part of that one.
So as Holly said, the Sublette County Commissioners will make the final, we make a recommendation, they actually make the decision. So it is important, regardless of what your perspective is, if you want it to be heard, I would suggest you be at the Board of County Commissioners meeting to make your voice heard.
All right, with that being said, let's just take a brief 5-minute break and then we'll move on to our second application.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Oh, that's better. Yeah, that's very.
And then
It was an overwhelming hearing. I mean, both these together, these are big. Yeah, that was, I mean, I'm surprised that's all you needed.
It's not all today. You can even say we should so training all over. All of it. Is it okay? Are you ready? You should be. Yep. Also a great party.
It was? I thought I could hear.
Okay, sorry, that was a
Yeah.
little more than 5 minutes.
That's a big difference. It is on them.
Okay, I would like to call this meeting to order at 8:31. We are gonna proceed with the Romac LLC rezone and conditional use permit for an RV park near the Daniel Junction. Haley?
All right, so this property is located at the Daniel Junction. The applicant is Romac LLC and Rio Verde is representing them and did a lot of the plans for them too. Here is just an aerial of where we're at. And I'll turn on the surrounding zoning. And can see that with the Mountain Meadow subdivision, there is industrial, commercial, some mixed use in this area, and then a lot of A1, and then some residential more towards the west and to the east. And I will also pull up the application just to show the proposed, or maybe this was in the other one. Just the proposed site plan here. This is proposing 12 RV spaces. Oh man, I'm zooming in instead of out. Wait. And this would be using Mountain Meadow Drive for the primary access. This does require a rezone because it's currently A1. In order to do an RV park, it is a conditional use within recreational services R1 zone district. So this requires the rezone and the CUP. Theoretically, just reviewing this application, the master plan of the rezone is essentially the CUP application. So just keep that in mind during this rezone review and the CUP review. They are separate items, but somewhat go hand in hand. That's all I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Not at this time.
Thanks.
Do we have Tammy with us still, right? Yeah.
Excuse me, sorry.
I do not.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Tammy. All right, if the applicant or their representative would like to take a look.
Sure. Mike Jackson with Rio Verde Engineering. We submitted quite a bit of information on this that I hope you've had a chance to look through. Really, this is as Haley said, a 12-unit RV park. It'll be operated on well water and individual septic system. It was purposeful. I mean, this layout was basically generated based on legal access, what their future plans are with the buildings in the area. We went with 12. Basically, that is the limit that you can go to without going to a public water supply system. So if you go any more than that, then there's more steps to take. It's not like it's any less safe. I mean, you still have to do things by, the way the DEQ requires. It's just kind of a cost breakover point for development. So, the way it's laid out is not subject to change. This is what the final plan is. There might be some tweaking of, alignment of water and sewer services. There will be perk tests done. There's obviously a good bit of information out there that was previously done. It's of the public record with the Mountain Meadow subdivision. We went through all that, looking through the chapter 23, the DEQ report, because they look at, nitrate levels, water supply. So basically went through those reports, which is way more than we're normally afforded for areas like this, because they specifically called out wells and the septics on this site. So I was able to glean from those and understand what we could do safely. So, this is basically it. We had some good meetings with Mr. Shad Cooper with Sublette County Unified Fire. He pointed out quite a few things in his thorough review. We had a secondary meeting, and I believe we addressed all his comments in a follow-up based on that meeting. Additionally, we looked at YDOT requirements, worked with Ms. Ruland on that, and also provided some information on that front. The applicants are aware that the address will change based on the newly filed Mountain Meadow subdivision. So the legal access is off Mountain Meadow Drive. So that'll be changing basically for, emergency services really is what it's for. So if there's any specific questions, we submitted a landscaping plan as well. It's got some privacy fencing in there. One of the things that Mr. Cooper brought up was snow storage space. So we added that to some of the additional mapping product, which I know is in the final staff report, some of that additional information that was submitted. So if you have any questions on that information, be happy to try and answer that.
I don't have any questions right now.
I had a couple of questions for you. First of all, and maybe me, if I overlooked this, is this, are they desiring this to be a year-round operation or just seasonal?
Year-round.
Year-round. Also, one question that I had, that is a pretty big concern of mine in regards to the water, with the wells. They're only figuring on 2 persons per unit. Are they somehow restricting that, or how will they, I know you're just figuring on an average. How do they plan for though 8 of those lots moving in a family of 6?
So the rates that are published there that we put our designs together for is what the DEQ specifies that you design water usage for each hookup. And so water usage is water waste. So basically whatever you use, you're going to be injecting back into the ground. So those are, if we were going to go to the DEQ for any permits, those are the published rates that we would apply for. And I mean, that's pretty excessive, especially for camping. Looking at, gallons per day, like a normal camper, you're not going to be going through that much water. So there's already conservatism built into those numbers. Like you say, I mean, if you had a camper with, say, a 500 gallon tank, I mean, you might, each camper could use that, but on average, it's not going to exceed that 200 per hookup.
What, have you looked into what this septic system is going to look like?
Yeah, it's mapped out.
Right. So I see it's just a standard septic tanks with leach field.
Yes.
How many tanks are you having?
Septic tanks.
Yeah.
I think I had 3 in this plan. Or 2. Yeah, 3. There's 3 in the plan.
Infiltrators?
It's not sized. Basically, we'll do in situ perk tests at that location to size the field. But I would just add to, like, just looking at all the studies that had been done, because there's been perk tests done around that it's totally doable. It's just a matter of sizing it correctly for the perk rate in that exact area. And yeah, I guess that's all I had on that front.
And the property does have a current septic system on site right now, and a well for the residential property that's on site.
Yes.
So would you have to dig a new well or use the existing?
Yes. Yeah, it'd be a well specifically for the RV park.
Tammy, do you have any questions right now for the applicant?
No, I don't. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Jolene.
Nope, I don't. Oh, stand by.
Okay, so again, we'll run this the same way that we did the last application. I will open it up for public comment for those in the room. And then open it up for, I don't know if we have anybody online, but I'll open it up for public comment online. Again, be very mindful and respectful. And if you will please address any comments and questions to us. And then after we go through the public comment period, then the applicant will have another opportunity to address any questions or comments that the public has. And again, whenever you come up for public comment, please sign your name on the paper up there and state your name as well, so that we have it for record.
The brave one. Always first.
Hi, this is Bettina Sparrow. I will sign after I provide my icon. I did. Come on. I wasn't sure what the second column was for, though, whether you want email or what. Anyway.
I don't know.
Okay. I didn't hear the answer to the question that Holly asked about how the restrictions will be held to 2 people, how that will be controlled. So I just throw that out as a potential question that I have. I live in Daniel, so I come from that perspective. That maybe, I don't know if that's meaningful or not, but I think it is. I wondered how pets would be regulated. I also wonder, and I should have looked this up before, I've done my homework, but I didn't. How is this different from a trailer park, and are there trailer park regulations? I just bet that may not be relevant, but that thought just crossed my mind. Will the people using the RV park, as I'm calling it, be allowed to use the 354 exit road or entrance road that the Mountain Meadows subdivision is being allowed to? I would have a lot of trouble, and I think that would be a bad thing to add that amount of traffic to that 354 route if that was allowed. I didn't see that in the proposal talked about at all. I think the size of the RV equipment plus trucks that would be pulling the RV equipment likely will be a real safety hazard that close to the 189-191 highway. These vehicles will need a lot of room to turn in to the Mountain Meadow Road, is that what it's called? And to slow down to enter the road off of 189. Speed limits in that part of the area on those roads are such that people could be going 70 or 55 when encountering traffic from this RV park. They now have a tendency to want to pass people who don't want to go that fast. And this is a straight road, and they think they can see in the distance, and it's not all that easy to safely, as it is right now, to safely pass somebody. And I think the added vehicles, the added composition of the vehicles, the size of the vehicles will make that even more unsafe, plus just the additional amount of traffic that it would cause. I recommend a turn lane, a lowered speed limit in that area, or another traffic study. And I understand you all can't control that or probably even make a suggestion to do that. We've kind of had that back and forth comment with the Mountain Meadows subdivision, but I still need to say that. Or I think a no vote on this is what I would recommend. Thank you very much. Next. You want me to sign for you, Tia?
Short. Hi, my name's Tia Leo, and I have quite a few concerns that weren't addressed in this proposal. One, that area that this is scheduled to be has been primarily agricultural residential area until Mountain Meadows moved in, and that was just approved recently. So I don't think it's an appropriate place for it. People that are for our town also, people who are going to stay there, they're not going to backtrack to Pinedale and go get a meal. So they'll go to Jackson. They'll be supporting Jackson, not our town. I think it's too far away from town, and it should support our town, not Jackson. Again, what Bettina said, Mountain Meadows was granted access to Highway 354 in the last commissioner meeting. What is going to stop these people from using 354? Because they can go right through Mountain Meadows and use it. They're using Mountain Meadow roads already. And that would be terrible. At the last meeting, there was talk about putting a stoplight on the corner of 354 and 191. And this would just exacerbate. Yeah, actually, they did talk about it. Dustin did. So the transportation guy, if need be, not guaranteed, but if need be, if the traffic got too heavy. Okay, a few other things here. It's going to be the fact that Holly said two people per trailer. Most recreational vehicles are 6, 8, 10. They're huge monster vehicles. They're not 2 people per trailer. People going on vacation, going to Yellowstone, etc. as families. One, again, how would you limit it? You can't let them in and say, ha, can't stay. And also, if you're having that year round for 365 days, 20 to 40 car usages a day, 40 would be over 14,000 cars. That's a huge amount, people. And definitely it's just not the appropriate place for that. And in the proposal, it said this will be a recreational park for snowmobilers, hunting, fishing, etc. And it also specifically stated for workers. Where do you draw the line between this being a bedroom community for Jackson or Pinedale? Where does the line change from R1 to a trailer home park? Going on to the water usage, it was said there's 12 plots because you don't need to have the water pump. Just a minute here, public water supply. The way I read that, it was 12 sites or 25 people. And that's why the number came out as 2. So that's 24 people plus 1 manager. So that was kind of a real convenient number. And I don't think that number is accurate. I think you're gonna have a lot more people than 2 people per trailer home per recreational vehicle. And so they would have to put in a public water supply. And adjacent to that would be, if you have that many people, if I read the regulations right, that it goes to 25 people too, you would also have to increase your sewer to an underground sewer system of some sort. Regarding the fire suppression system, they want to use Mountain Meadows 10,000 tank. I believe they need their own. My neighbor may have a fire extinguisher. That doesn't mean it's going to work on my property. I think they need their own fire suppression system tank, water tank. Especially you're dealing with people moving through here who don't understand our water and our fire situation, particularly in the summer, how dry everything is. Sorry, my list got messy. And going back to the traffic situation, they're saying around 20 cars per day coming in and out. Those RVs, they have a RV, a car behind them, a motorcycle tied to the back of the RV. The traffic is going to be much more. And as I've already pointed out, 365 times 40 is 14,000. That's a lot of traffic, people. Regarding lowered property values, of course it's going to lower our property values. How would it not? Mountain Meadows already did it, and this is just an extension of Mountain Meadows. They're using Mountain Meadows Road and their fire suppression. It seems to be an extension of Mountain Meadows. Our property values will go down with that. Okay, and there was nothing mentioned, if this does go through, how you're going to treat the residents that are already there. There was no mention of night skies to keep the light down. There was no mention of, as a lot of recreational vehicle parks have, a 10 o'clock quiet, not go to bed time, but quiet, no snowmobiles running circles around the place. So to try to keep the noise down. In regards to, in the future, a public fireplace, I think a wood one. People aren't used to burning wood that travel here from New York City. I think a gas fireplace would be much more appropriate than a wood fireplace, and for a public fireplace there. And that pretty much covers that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment in the room? All right, with that being said, is there any public comment online? Anybody else online? Okay. All right, with that being said, I will go back to the board then, and our administrator for any further comments or questions.
I've got some questions for Mike. So I guess first, just to respond to the questions that were posed in the public comment period there. Maybe you could just explain the 2 people per spot and concern about how we control the number of people, or how to think about that.
So really what it comes down to is the volume. When we're looking at water supply and sewage, it's volume of water. So when you're sizing it for a house, that's taken into account laundry and other things. And so the first bedroom is 350 gallons per minute, and it starts scaling down after that, after a certain point. And this is all based on DEQ standards. And so what they're saying is that each RV stall that you account for 200 gallons per day per hookup. So it's just like you're doing it for a house, only these are just RV stalls, and the DEQ published amount for that is 200 gallons a day. So that's that.
Okay. So I guess so the 2 people per spot was in reference to your
Sorry.
calculations regarding
Right. Yeah.
septic.
Yeah, I apologize. I was kind of getting stuck on water there. So yeah, as far as the people, that's also the accepted number that DEQ accepts. So if you're looking at people or number of hookups, it's 2 people per site or 1 hookup. So when you're adding all that up to go towards public water supply, that's what they go by.
Yeah. Okay. Has there been any discussion about managing pets or any requirements related to
That's the one item I until this meeting, pets never came up. So the applicants are here. I don't know what how that would work as far as a condition. I mean, how you would enforce that, like what that agreement would look like. But we're amenable to any suggestions.
Okay. And what about the use of 354 for entry and exit to the premises?
Yeah. So, this has been submitted. I mean, has been in front of Darren Kaufman with YDOT. So as it's platted currently, the legal access into this property is from Mountain Meadow Drive. And in order to proceed with this, we've provided information. We'll have to formally submit a application for commercial access from the one that's already being used by the Mountain Meadow subdivision, which doesn't include 354.
I guess I was thinking back to, we've done a couple of other RV parks. One was, I think, back to Elkhorn, and I'm thinking there about the proximity to the river brought up a lot of concern around how the waste would be handled. And in that case, there was a requirement to put in a dump tank to mitigate the risk of polluting the waterway there. Here, it's not quite as close, but it's still in kind of wetlands area and not too far from the water. I guess I'm curious about a couple of things. One is just proximity of that, and whether it would be beneficial to do something similar to help contain the waste. And I guess related to that is just the nature of what an RV puts into a septic tank compared to what a home might put into a septic tank, related to chemicals and the character of things that come out of RV dump tanks. I just wonder if you could comment on that or any thoughts on that. Or
yeah, I mean, but we're pretty fortunate to be able to have the information that we have in those reports that were done, and so that's surrounding basically this property. And so they analyze, the effects of neighboring wells based on expected yields. They're looking at nitrates from these septic systems. I kind of briefly in some of my stuff, I kind of, pointed out in those reports, the information I was deriving. To go a step further, I mean, if you would feel more comfortable, I mean, I think we can definitely do a traditional leach field and safely. But if you're interested in more information before we submit for a septic application, we can reach out to John Wetstein, who prepared the report, and just give him the numbers. This is what we're doing. If there's any recommendations or issues that he sees, because we are under the threshold for needing to go to a formal DEQ permit. Obviously, we follow DEQ standards when we submit to the county.
Right.
But that's something that, we have a working relationship with those same people, and they, we can reach out and provide that information if it would make you feel better about the system.
Right. So the one that was by the airport was like a larger one, right?
Yeah.
That was DEQ.
It's big
requirement. Yeah. Okay. And in that case, what is that? Is that a septic if it's just larger and it has to be?
Yeah, it's the same type of thing. So you're still doing a septic system. However, your setbacks change a lot So from a public water supply, it's 500 feet versus 100 feet. So it's a big spacing criteria, and beyond that, we're, like I said, fortunate to have all the information that we do on this site. But you need to do a certain amount of get the geologists involved to say, these are the safe levels, because you have to go through the full DEQ chapter 23 in order to permit those UIC permits.
Right. Okay. So moving from one type of waste to another type of waste, to thinking about garbage, is there a plan for trash management and collection and things like that, or what's?
It's just like from waste receptacles.
Mhm.
I didn't cover that. I don't know. I mean, I would say there would probably be an on-site dumpster, probably close to the applicants are here. I'd probably feel comfortable.
Sure, yeah,
with
they'd like to
speak to that.
Sure.
Maybe that and the pets, maybe. I'd be.
Whenever, if you'd like to come now, that'd be fine.
Tom Haggart, Romac, blind. All right, to speak to the question of garbage, I just assume that the normal M&M or services would be a part of that. That's that large of operation. We wouldn't have our own dump truck type thing. So it'd be a pickup. Same with any tank pumping or anything. It's still the same garbage people. Pets been considered. That's kind of a tenuous thing with probably have to have pretty strict park regulations for that. And those type of details haven't been drawn up. Similarly, we consider this getting through with conditions just to see if we're on the right track. We had never planned to use the 354, is it, to Myrna? Doesn't really make sense. The road was kind of built big enough for the state dump trucks and big semis, and turning radiuses work fine. The decision to go this route is a little, off the cuff. We got the property from Dwayne after his grandparents died. Once we realized it's an island of a residence, didn't quite fit, and the property is pretty run down, so it had to go through the change. Details of some of the buildings, we kind of want to keep the historical value of that look. They kind of tie in with the old state construction in 1935, so we're kind of sensitive to kind of keep some continuity to that history. The RV park at Rookies, I guess, we're across the road. We're not Rookies anymore, but they're kind of a 12 unit as well. And I think capacity of tourists probably drive by because there isn't adequate. And either go to Pinedale or they'll go to Jackson. But we didn't think it was an impact to the traffic of trailers that are probably already flying through there. And an idea of what would happen with the 2 people or water ratio. If I get explained how sensitive that is, then the type of booking that they do with RV now you can ask for specifics, who's coming, how many pets. It's all done remote. They can come in at their leisure that way. But if they book it and there's 6 people, that could kick out 2 spaces. And it's managed in that kind of, if it's that sensitive to the water and septic usage, it's managed through the computer. Otherwise, the manager would have to go and check the trailer and all this. And we have to depend on honesty and integrity on that end. Did I miss any other? We're very sensitive about night sky. We, we can't tell people not to keep their porch light on, but the site, if there's any, it probably would be our own safety issue of lighting for access. It would be very specifically downlit. And that's kind of a study that the whole county needs to look at. But anything else? Good. Am I answering something?
Well, as we can ask questions.
Banter,
about the board.
yeah.
I think you've answered our questions. Yes, so thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I don't have any other questions right now.
Come up again? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for answering some of those questions, but I still have a few more questions. Again, the 354, or so are you going to block it off so they can't use 354? Mountain Meadow said they weren't going to use 354, and they just got granted access to use 354 for the 17.6 acres that they have. And they said they weren't going to use it. So can this RV park block it off with a railroad, avalanche signs, a fence? Block it off to the access so their RV park cannot come up to 354. Would that be an option? And also, I didn't get a good answer on how are you going to keep this from turning to a trailer park when just people who live in Pinedale go out there and live, and it's no longer an R1. It turns into a trailer park. How do you make the distinction between that? How many people are living there permanently year-round? How many people are R1? I'm a little confused on that, and if it's been said, excuse me, I missed it. But I would like that clarified, please. Thank you.
Haley, did you want to respond to the difference between RRMH and RV parks?
People are allowed to stay in RV.
It's 180 days, I believe.
So that is a requirement that people can only stay for a consecutive time period of 180 days.
Okay, Tia, your question is being answered. Just so
The consecutive time period that people can stay at an RV park is 180 days per our regulations. So if you're going to stay longer, you cannot stay longer than 180. So there is a maximum on that. I do think the Highway 354 and the Mountain Meadow Drive access, we have had a few different conversations with Darren Kaufman, the traffic engineer, and even with the applicant, with Mike Jackson. We've discussed traffic, and I asked for additional traffic information and to discuss turn lane warrants, even though YDOT is not requiring that right now. But they will have to update the access to 354 with approval of this. And YDOT will be requiring that they provide traffic numbers and to show that a turn lane is not warranted. Down in the future, if this is not in our jurisdiction, so right now it's just this is all YDOT when it comes to an access permit. I think we could reasonably ask YDOT in the future to do a speed limit study in this area and to do an intersection analysis or just a safety study in this area. But I think at this point, from my conversations with Darren, they would prefer that the development be there and actually have the increased traffic from the developments before they do it, because there's really just the current traffic that they're basing this off of. And so I think that's just something to keep in mind. The Highway 354 access, they still need to update that access permit. If that is something that the board would like to consider as a condition for future, that's something to think about. We have, one thing I did request from the applicant is a road maintenance agreement with Mountain Meadow Drive. The fact that they will be using that, and that is part of the Mountain Meadow Drive subdivision. So just that they are involved with the road maintenance on that side. Thanks. But that's probably not answering all. That's anyway, just.
So it sounds, let me make sure I'm understanding correctly. I mean, it sounds to me like, I think we heard that they would not use 354, but there may be access from 354, which would be difficult to control. I mean, people may, in fact, just turn on to 354 in order to get in there, and you wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Is that sort of where things would stand eventually?
Well, eventually, if the road from Mountain Meadow Drive to Highway 354 is connected, it is not like legally connected at this point in time. It will require the access permit to be updated. At this time, that access permit, it is on the plat that it needs to be updated. So there is legal access right now to Highway 354 for pretty much this property. In the future, if this road is connected, and there, I will say this is a very old aerial photo. So this road actually goes quite a bit further. And this road, I think there is a little bit of development coming into, people do occasionally use the road from Highway 354, but it is not the main primary driveway. But when that Mountain Meadow subdivision was originally submitted, the master plan was for that road to be connected in the future. So if they ever develop this portion of Mountain Meadow Drive, it is very possible that they may propose to connect this entire roadway, which could lead to, you know, future access to 354 for this property.
Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question? I'm going to do that. This is not even necessarily. My name is Seth Keen. Does anybody know when the last time YDOT did an actual traffic survey?
In this particular area?
Yes.
I'm not aware of the last time they did one.
I think depending on what they're doing, they do traffic counts quite a bit, but as far as doing any sort of anything beyond that, I'm not sure what additional studies they've done for this area.
Okay.
Holly, excuse me, Holly, I have a question.
You there, Tammy?
Yes, can you hear me?
We got you now.
Okay, thank you. I just have a quick question. Is there going to be septic clean outs for this RV park? Are you going to allow people to come in and, excuse me, do clean out of RVs? I can't even think of what it's called, a dump station?
Hey, Tammy, this is Mike. There's no planned dump station, so it's just going to be the individual services at the hook at each RV pad. So it's somewhere you pull your trailer in, you can hook up and use it while you're there, and then when you leave, you leave. But there's not going to be any like publicly available RV dumps or water filling.
Okay, I just know some of the RV parks allow that to happen. So I just would want to make sure that that doesn't, they just charge like a $10 dump fee and they pull up to one of the lots and they just pull through and they're done. I just want to make sure that that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's not the intended. I mean, that's not their intention to be able to do that.
You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Okay, That's my only question that I had.
Thanks, Tammy. Do you have any other questions? Amy, do you have any? There wasn't any. Okay.
Looks like Bettina has a question.
Did I ask another question?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Bettina Sparrow again. One of the justifications I believe I read or came out to me through reading the proposal was to, there seemed to be a lack of recreational vehicle spots, parking spots, or just this was going to support recreation in Sublette County. If I misread that, tell me. But I'm also wondering what's that based on? Was there a study or something saying we're lacking that kind of facility? Thank you.
Yeah, look at.
Here we go. I think, I mean, it's a business plan. And I mean, I don't think anybody would want to invest money where there's not a demand. And the RV parks that are in and around Pinedale, Boulder, Daniel, I mean, they seem to be full all the time. You know, maybe not 100% of the time, but there's definitely a demand. And it seems like there's more and more visitors all the time. I mean, the visitor rates in Yellowstone are going up every year, and so are the surrounding areas. So I think it's a solid business platform to provide a service for the need. So I think that's more of a personal risk that anybody takes as far as a business plan. But I think it's also in a really good location. It's in a junction. To where you can go different places. So it's a good central place to where you can access a lot of different parts of the county from a home base in a camper. So that's an answer.
And I guess that's one concern I have though, is on one hand, I do appreciate and understand the thought that this is a good place for it. But I also have to point out that there is already an existing RV park right across the road that is well maintained and has been there for a considerable amount of time. How many lots do you guys have in yours? 20? And yours is year round as well, correct? Are all those lots year round or just part of them? They're all year round.
We're never full, so, it's not a.
So the bottom in the parking lot, there used to be 10. We've negated quite a few and made them like 2 on 1. The top, there's 5 or 6 that don't get rented out during the winter, summer. And so
you winterize those ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that that's something that, you know, one of the criterias, in fact, it's our number 1 criteria for conditional use is whether a special need will be met, including providing new jobs or an expanded economic base. And so it's just something like, that's my first thought is this really necessary there, since we already have one that's there that has adequate spaces. Also, I don't know, I feel like there has just been a lot happening at the junction, and it does bring to mind the worry with water, all of the new development right there. at the junction. And I understand that, like, 'cause we have our lot, which is across the highway, and we have good water there. But it is something that I definitely keep in mind, is how much pull can you take on that area from the waters, or from water wells. I just definitely something to think about, for sure. And I know that it's been brought up several times with the access to 354, but I think that we need to keep in mind, though, that that is out of the hands of these folks that are applying to this. I understand the concern, because 354 concerns me as well, because that is a terrible intersection. But I do want to point out that these folks are bringing this to us with no intent of using 354. Right now, there is not a road clear to 354. Like, it's a 2-track dirt road. And what happens beyond that has no control over these folks. So I just want to point that out, that I understand the concern, because like I said, I too am very concerned about that intersection at 354, but that has nothing to do with these folks, nothing to do with this current application. I would just like to say that. So that being said, do you have any further comments, Mr. Listenik?
I'll say that I'm conflicted about this application. I think that and again, I think this is not the burden of this applicant to bear. I think with regard to how things have evolved with the particular site, the surrounding area there, I've not been a fan of how that's emerged. I think it creates a lot of uncertainty that was originally, there was a master plan for Mountain Meadows that then got split into 2 phases, and we don't know what phase 2 looks like. And there's a lot of uncertainty that I think does a disservice to the surrounding folks that live in that area about what may or may not happen to their property values, what may or may not be neighbors to them. And so for that reason, I think this just adds more certainty as to what's happening in that area. And I'm sympathetic to the folks that live in the area and are probably worried about how things will evolve there. As I said, I don't think that is the burden of this applicant to bear, and I'm not putting that on them. It's just an observation. On the positive side, I think that this is non-conforming A1, meaning that it's not a 35-acre A1 lot. It's a smaller lot that, when you look at like what's around it, I think there's a question of what is I can't say that there's a better use for that lot than what these folks are proposing. I think that given where it is and the specific circumstances of what they're surrounded by, it makes sense in a lot of ways. So I think that is favorable. It's in my opinion, to the applicant. Water issue, I mean, I think that is, as a county, it's one of the biggest issues that I think we fail on routinely being able to comment on the actual water, because we actually don't have any data on our aquifers or water sources. And so, the applicant has put forth the best data they can. I understand the concern. I think there's other applications that have tremendous water usage where I would, if it were that case, you'd say, I don't know. This doesn't strike me as a tremendous, amount of water being used. There could be a multifamily residence of 12 units that, would be similar. I don't think we would be overly worried about the density in that case, but I don't know. So I understand that concern, but I don't know. That's always a concern of mine. And I feel like we have bad tools at our disposal to be able to make calls that we are asked to make in a very explicit way in the regulations. So those are my thoughts on it. There's some conditions, I guess, that based on this conversation that I would propose, I'll throw out there just so that if there's thoughts from the other commissioners, we can discuss them. And I think that the applicants would be amenable to these, although we'll ask if that's the case. I do think exterior lighting is important. It's not lost on me that that area has a ton of bright lights, but I think it would be reasonable to just say that the lights that are put up outside of for safety reasons are dark sky compliant, point downward toward the site, aren't blaring bright lights at neighbors. I think that submission of some sort of solid waste like garbage sort of plan would be great to take before you go to the county commissioners to address that. I'm not worried about it. I'm sure you'll figure it out. It's not complicated, but it would be good to have that. I'm just looking at, I think Haley offered a couple of recommendations that I think skip over for now. I think requiring guests to have their pets on a leash would be a condition I'd like to ask. I think it would be reasonable to ask for quiet hours from, I'll throw out 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that septic hookups not be used by non-overnight guests for dumping waste. Those are the things that, based on this conversation, I would throw out for consideration as conditions.
Super. Thank you. Tammy, do you have any further comments, questions?
I don't. Thanks, Holly.
All right. Well, with that being said, are we prepared to make a motion?
And we have two. Change of zoning district is the one that we vote on first.
Yes.
And then a conditional use permit.
Yes.
Right.
One thing I would just like to mention, there is a section in the change in zone district regulations that it's up to you if you include a master plan with the approval or not. And I feel like this application, this conditional use permit is required under RS1 zoning, but it somewhat is related to the master plan. So if the master plan, just something to keep in mind, if there is not a master plan associated with RS1 zoning, then that leaves room for any additional RS1 zoning in the future in case it is not used as an RV. So I just am bringing this up because it's more just a long-term thing to think about as far as future use of the property under RS1 zoning.
So I guess my take on the language around that in the staff report was that this, I think you said something like the CP serves as a master plan.
I think that's just something to consider with the motion of how to, if that is something you want to consider. If you, I think just kind of bear in mind what the motion will be and well,
I would say I definitely think it's important to say, yes, this is the thing we're hearing about and asking questions about and getting answers about is the thing that will happen there. And it would be a disservice if we think we're approving this and the next thing we know it's something completely different. That would not be good. So in the past, I've heard there's been different comments, and maybe Clayton, who's unusually quiet tonight, can weigh in on this. But I've heard two things that to me seem we've done like, as presented sort of thing before. And then I've heard if it's not explicit in the motion, that it's not real. So can you maybe offer some guidance on if we wanted to ensure that the thing we're making a motion on tonight is the RV park and the thing we've all talked about? What's the best way to
say as presented? You can use that as presented language. You can say, and I'm sorry, I closed my computer on the staff report. I can't remember if it was presented as a master plan or not. But yeah, that can be the language in the motion for the change of zoning district boundary change, boundary zone.
Would it be beneficial to say the master plan as presented to CUP? I think it might have been with the rezone application also, that master plan. So I think it
So,
was.
yeah, if there was a master plan submitted, and I'm sorry, I just don't have a memory of it right now. But yes, according, you can
believe it
use,
was.
insert that language of according to the master
This
plan.
is it.
And that belt and suspenders, that there's no question.
Okay, so if we use that term master plan, then in the future, our future selves would know that what we're referring to.
That is the part of the application that lays out what spots, locations, and everything else. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe master plan as presented in the application, something along those
I
lines.
think that's great.
Okay,
And then, of course, any conditions need to be noted in your motions.
right. Okay. Are you ready for a motion or?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to make a motion, having considered the 10 necessary findings, I move to recommend approval of the zone map amendment for the Romac LLC property, rezoning 2.7 acres from agricultural district A1 to recreational service district RS1 based on the findings contained in Chapter 8 of the Sublette County Zoning and Development Regulations and based on the following conditions. The zoning district boundary change is conditional upon the applicant developing the property as described in the master plan as presented this evening. That's condition 1. Condition 2, that all exterior lighting, with the exception of safety lighting, be dark sky friendly. That the rezone is conditioned on substantial development per the, on substantial development per the CUP as master plan, according to the master plan. Within the section 2E 2-year window, that there is the condition 3, that there is a plan presented before the Board of County Commissioners for management of solid waste. That condition 4, I guess there was something in the, I didn't see it in what I just read, but I know I saw it somewhere that there was a recommended condition around communal fire pit, if ever added, requires P&Z and stuff. Oh, that's part of the CUP. All right, thank you. Okay. So condition, I think I'm on 5. Pets required, that guests are required to keep their pets on a leash. Condition 6, that quiet hours are from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And condition 7, or whatever I'm on, that the septic hookups will not be used by non-overnight guests for dumping waste. Is that, should I not have made those with this one?
That should have been with the CUP.
Oh, I got it. Well, so then can we, so there was 2 that are relevant for that. So let's strike all of those. The conditions are that the zoning district boundary change may be made conditional upon, or is conditional upon, the applicant developing the property as described in the said master plan as presented this evening. The other one I said makes note of what's in our regulations, is that there's a 2-year window. And is that important to state in the condition? That substantial progress must be made within 2 years. Okay, Clayton says it's not necessary. All right, so that's it. I'm sure.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
What did Clayton say to that?
That we didn't need to include that in because it is in the regulations, so it doesn't. Need
Okay. Gotcha. I second the motion. Thank you.
So we have a motion to pass the application for a rezone. And we have a second with, was it 1 condition?
One condition.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Nay.
I'm so sorry. My mic wasn't working. My fingers weren't working.
Tammy,
I'm sorry.
what is your vote?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So motion passes.
Okay, I'd like to make another motion. Having considered the 8 necessary criteria, I move to approve. Well, it's 8 criteria and 2 findings.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
it said we actually spell out the findings within this motion. Okay. So having considered the 8 necessary criteria, I move to approve a finding that the proposed location of the use is in accordance with the purpose of the Sublette County zoning and development regulations and the recreational service district, and that the proposed location of the use and the conditions under which it would be operated or maintained will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to the properties or improvements in the vicinity. And I move to approve the conditional use permit for Romac LLC to construct a 12-unit RV park as described in the application materials located at the Daniel intersection. This approval is made pursuant to the Sublette County zoning and development regulations, including Chapter 2, which identifies campgrounds as a conditional use in the recreational service zoning district, and the regulations and findings found in Chapter 5 of the Sublette County zoning and development regulations governing conditional uses. Conditions to this CUP include the following. 1, if a future communal fire pit is anticipated, the applicant will provide the Planning and Zoning Office and SCUF with a design plan for review and approval prior to construction. 2, a formal operating plan regarding gas cooking appliances will be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Office and SCUF, which is Sublette County Unified Fire, for review and approval prior to the authorized use thereof. 3, the RV park electrical plan will be reviewed and approved by Wyoming Department of Fire Protection and Electrical Safety prior to construction. Once issued, a copy of said approval letter will be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Office for their records. 4, a maintenance agreement shall be established with Mountain Meadow subdivision for the use of the Mountain Meadow Drive. 5, all exterior lighting shall be dark sky friendly. 6, that a plan for solid waste will be presented before the Board of County Commissioners. 7, that guests will be required to keep their pets on leash. 8, that quiet hours will be from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And 9, that the septic hookups will not be used by non-overnight guests for dumping of waste.
Perfect. Thank you. So I have a motion to pass the CUP with the additional, what's the date?
I think it was 9.
With the additional 9 conditions. Do I have a second?
You have a second, Holly. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion passes. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. And I would really like to thank the applicants for coming as well. I know that it's not a requirement and oftentimes they just send a representative, but I personally very much like to see you guys.
What are you saying about Mike? Just a representative.
Sorry, not just the representative. I really do appreciate you guys coming in tonight.
And thanks for every public comment.
Yeah, everyone coming in tonight. Sure. So again, this too will go on to the July 7th County Commissioners meeting. So same as the previous applicant.
You won't be here.
That's okay. You can send Michael. He's a good representative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No, yeah. No.
I don't know.
No, sorry, I figured that everybody else would be going here, so I'm just thanking you. All right, so my agenda go. So moving on. So have the whole business. Right.
Yes.
Hey, you guys are breaking up. I can't hear you.
No, sorry, we're not really saying anything yet.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, we're just looking to see if we have any. We'll do that.
Would folks mind exiting so that the people can hear us on Zoom, please? Thank you.
So just an update about just where we stand with the regulations and the comprehensive plan. We presented a proposal to the county commissioners on Tuesday to release a request for qualifications. This was following, really, I feel like this update is almost more for like Tammy, because you both are aware, both are aware of what's going on. And Tammy, I feel like I can fill you in more, but we are doing a request for qualifications. We will then create a short list. And from that short list, we will then go through the proposal process and select a consultant. And rather than telling them everything that we want, we are more identifying our current situation and somewhat what our long-term goal is, and then asking them to provide us how they would like to do, how they feel like they can achieve this based off of their experience, and to do this all in 18 months. So we have the RFQ. It actually was released Tuesday, right after the meeting. I sent it to about 20 consultants. We're getting it in the newspaper. We put it on the website. I put it on the APA website. The WIO, I don't know if it's going to go on WIOPass. I don't know if it matters as much because we sent it to everyone that's listed on WIOPass already. But I feel like we are trying to get it out there and just to get some competitive, be nice to hear from qualified firms on this. So, but yeah, that's where we are with it. I feel like this is exciting, an exciting step, but
That's great.
we are going to have a public meeting, or just a meeting that is open for anyone that's interested. It's part of the RFQ process where I'm going to join in to just answer questions from the firms. And if anyone is interested in being in that meeting, I was planning on reaching out to the committee to see if anyone wants to join it. I don't know if anyone's going to come, but whatever people ask us during that meeting, then we will share that with everyone through an addendum, just to make sure people are on the same playing field. But at this point, we're not asking for any cost proposals. That will not be until the next stage. So we have, I don't know, this is a fairly long, lengthy time. Tammy, our thought is that this final recommendation will go to be presented to the county commissioners on September 1st. So we have, that gives us like all of July and August to really make a good decision on this. And if we need more time, then
a full recommendation for the consultant.
For the consultant,
To
I'm sorry.
clarify.
A full recommendation of the consultant with a proposed cost.
Yeah.
So we will have like good information that will be going to the commissioners by September 1st.
Great.
A good package to go to them.
So Haley, is this the right time to tell you you've already discussed this with me?
Did I?
No.
Yes.
We were like very done with everything.
Should I ask several questions?
Yeah.
But thank you guys for doing all that. That's amazing. I really appreciate it. But yes, Haley, it's okay.
Yeah.
With
As far as what?
like selecting a consultant and like getting everything started.
Yes and no. I mean, I would say that the planning administrator at the time excluded us from the process. And so there was an RFP. We asked questions, we didn't get answers. There was a consultant selected. I don't know what the process was. And
Gotcha. And sorry, the only reason why I ask is it's just one of those that like, we don't want to repeat history, right? Like we want to make this productive.
yeah, absolutely.
I guess I was just never aware of how that process went, obviously.
No, I think this is much more transparent and including the right stakeholders and stuff. Yeah, this feels like the right process.
To that the involvement with the commissioners, like
Absolutely.
I feel like that's a lot more productive.
Yeah.
And like I said, I came in on the very tail end of everything with the consultant last time, but I feel like it's a lot more cohesive.
Yeah.
Everyone.
So something we did talk about with the commissioners on Tuesday, was it this week? This Tuesday was having whoever is on the consultant selection committee. It may not be the same committee that we have right now. So trying to figure out who all is interested in being in that and forming that group.
Yeah.
So I think just that may need to be discussed on the July 7th county commissioner meeting.
We need to
And-
see who's on the board, who's on the plan and
I
zoning
guess
commission.
even,
that
yes,
day.
that's true, because this is,
I think so.
so I think just, that's another point is, so,
Yeah,
but I think just, there was thought though from the commissioners too of maybe opening it a little bit above just that small group of 4.
Yeah.
And trying to get some more people involved. So, which I think is a great idea. I do think that
just
there
as
should
long
be a
as we don't
little.
get too many.
Yeah, I know. It's just,
I do, right.
it makes it
If we get
complicated.
too many people in a room, then you're almost just like,
And you don't
I think if you do that, my humble recommendation would be like that if you open it up bigger, there should be like, everybody should know who's the decider. And I think you would be a great decider, but like, so you might hear all the input from this large group, but you make the ultimate decision. Or it's you and one other person, or you and 2 other people, or whatever, but the decider should be a small group, and like the larger group gives input.
like to propose that when we receive the statements of qualification, that we have a matrix and that people just will independently go through them and like rank them, like have very simple numbering and then submit them so that we're not getting any sort of like,
Yeah,
what is it when you're getting input from other people and then
like influenced.
yes, the influence decision. So it's like trying to
Right.
get more independent feedback too before we get everyone in the same room to talk about it. But
Mhm.
I just think that helps also to remove that influence that we have on each other sometimes when we're in a room.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, and the next meeting is July 16th. The only thing we have on the agenda is a variance application, and this application is one that it is to construct a guest house on a parcel that is less than 2 acres. So I feel like this is one that we have had multiple conversations with the property owner about alternatives, and this is what the property owner would like to do. So
Okay.
that's the only thing on the application for the meeting.
All right,
So
man. A big one and then an easy one, a small one.
like, wow, we have something on the.
But every time I think something's gonna be easy, it's like 6 hours later.
No.
Actually, this Daniel one, I thought it was gonna take a while. What's that?
Do you need to adjourn the meeting?
Yes. Yes, so I will adjourn the meeting at 9:47 PM. Thank you, guys.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.